Chapter 114. Mu Jianfeng left, and Xia Shui went back to school. Long Bing put on an apron to clean up the empty plates on the dining table. Charlotte thought about what Mu Jianfeng said before he left. Mu Jianfeng wanted him to go to Germany for an inspection. Germany's manufacturing industry was no weaker than that of the United States, and some areas even surpassed the United States. There was also an advantage to going to Germany to inspect the most advanced ultra-precision machine tools. It was much safer than going to the United States. Germany was not so wary of China, and there was no ideological hostility between the two. From time to time, there were reports on the internet that the United States had arrested Chinese businessmen who stole secrets from the United States, but there were few such cases in Germany. Therefore, Germany was the best choice. Long Bing cleaned up the tableware and came over. She sat across from Charlotte and looked at Charlotte. "You're going to Germany. How much do you know about Germany?" Charlotte thought for a moment. Well, Germany's industry is very developed. Germany has a high status in the European Union, and German beer is very famous. Oh yes, there's also the Bayern Munich football club. You like football? Charlotte shook his head. I don't really like it. It's just that it's famous, so I know about it. That's all I know about Germany. It doesn't matter. You can speak German, and that's enough. Long Bing said, I'm responsible for your safety in this operation, but I don't understand German. You have to take care of me there. When talking to Mu Jianfeng, Charlotte knew that Long Bing was going to Germany this time. He liked this arrangement very much. He smiled and said, No problem. I won't translate the men's bathroom to the women's bathroom. He made a joke, but Long Bing did not have the slightest hint of smile on her face. She said, When are you leaving? Charlotte said, She said she'll give me 2 days to prepare, but it may take more time. I don't think I'm in a hurry, right? I want to finish the things I have to deal with, so I don't have to worry about anything when I go. Speaking of this, he suddenly remembered the purpose of coming to Kyoto, and then said, Right, did you find out what kind of parts Qi Jingxiu wants me to process? I don't know. You don't know? Charlotte looked at Long Bing in surprise. Long Bing said, I've asked several experts and professors in different fields, but none of them could tell the purpose of those parts. I can't help you in this situation. What are you going to do? Charlotte thought for a moment before saying, This matter is very strange. Maybe I've accidentally fallen into someone's trap. I won't do this business. At most, I'll earn less money. The less trouble, the better. You're right to think so. So be at rest early. I'll accompany you to Haizhu City tomorrow, and we'll leave for Germany after you're done with your work, Long Bing said. Okay, I'm going back to my room. Charlotte got up and went to the second floor. Long Bing's lips curled up into a barely noticeable smile. Back in his room, Charlotte was still thinking about Qi Jingxiu and her order. He thought that Long Bing could help him figure out the purpose of those parts, but he didn't expect that even the resourceful Long Bing couldn't find out what those parts were for. This surprised him greatly. If it's not for military use, then it's not a trap. But why did Qi Jingxiu go to see Gu Qian? If those parts were Gu Qian's, would she be so kind as to give me the order? Impossible. Charlotte's heart was full of confusion. Music started playing outside the room again. Just like yesterday, it was a rhythmic sports music. The music changed some of Charlotte's memories. His mind couldn't help but think of Long Bing in a sports bikini, her sweaty skin, and a mature and attractive shape wrapped in elastic cotton. These memories made him unable to think calmly. He got out of bed, opened the door, and walked out. He thought to himself, Is she going to teach me a lesson like yesterday? I've been tricked once. Am I going to be tricked a second time? Walking out of the room, Charlotte immediately saw Long Bing exercising on the sports bike. Just like last night, she was only wearing a skin-tight sports bikini. The strenuous exercise had caused her to sweat even more than last night. Her body was drenched, and there were beads of sweat on her snow-white neck, snow-white chest, and even her lower abdomen and thighs. She looked like she had just come out of a sauna. Her hands were on the handlebars, and her upper body was leaning forward. Her buttocks were raised high, and her long legs were exerting force on the pedals. Between the seat covers, the shape wrapped in elastic cotton was still so clear, mature, and attractive. What made Charlotte feel like having a nosebleed was that the mature shape would touch the seat covers from time to time, causing slight pressure and slight deformation. Every little change brought with it a strong sense of stimulation. For Charlotte, that kind of stimulation was like not drinking water for 3 days, and he was dying of thirst. However, this time, Charlotte had learned his lesson. He quietly observed the situation around Long Bing. There was no towel, and there was no gun hidden in the towel. Isn't she in class? Charlotte thought this in his heart, and his gaze moved to Long Bing's chest. Under the strenuous exercise, they were shaking violently. Under her neckline was a beautiful white scene. His eyes were also dazzled. At this moment, Long Bing suddenly reached under the seat and pulled out a small pistol. With a shake of her hand, she aimed at Charlotte. The action of aiming only needed 1/3 of a second, but it was in the blink of an eye that Charlotte was prepared, and he suddenly lay on the ground. Bang! There was a gunshot, and a rubber bullet almost grazed Xiaolei's scalp. After the shot missed, Long Bing adjusted the direction of the muzzle. Charlotte rolled and hid in his room in time. Bang! Another rubber bullet grazed his shoulder, hit the ground, and ricocheted elsewhere. The pistol was very small, and it was only loaded with 2 rubber bullets. After the 2 shots missed, a satisfied smile appeared on Long Bing's face. She got out of the sports car and walked to the door. As she walked, she said, "Not bad. Your vigilance and reflexes are up to standard." Charlotte carefully poked his head out of the door and said with a bitter smile, "Can we not do this?" Long Bing stopped at the door. "When I can't plot against you, our training is over. I'm just a consultant. There's no need to train me into a secret agent or spy, right? Although Germany is safer than the United States, there are still unknown variables. If what we're going to do is discovered, both you and I will be in great danger. If you want to come back safely, you'd better learn these things." Charlotte smiled. "Okay, I'll learn whatever you want to teach me. Let's call it a day. You can use the bathroom on the 2nd floor, and I'll use the bathroom on the 1st floor. Good night." Long Bing turned around and walked down the stairs. "Good night." Charlotte's gaze moved to her perky butt, and his mind was filled with many messy thoughts. After a while, Charlotte changed into his pajamas and slippers and went to the bathroom on the 2nd floor to take a shower and sleep. He turned on a shower head and took off his pajamas. However, just as he was about to take off his only pair of underwear, he suddenly stopped. Because at that moment, his left eye caught a change in the light under the bathroom door. The change was very small, but his left eye was very sharp, and it could capture the very subtle change in light. It was this subtle change in light that made him vigilant. His left eye twitched slightly, and the fog glass door that blocked his view disappeared from his sight. Outside the door, Long Bing was creeping closer, holding a gun with a silencer in her hand. One of her hands was slowly reaching for the doorknob, and her ear was facing the direction of the bathroom, carefully listening for the sound inside. Again, she really doesn't want to give up. Charlotte's heart skipped a beat. He hung the pajamas on the hanger on the shower head and pulled the plastic curtain. The water from a shower head washed over the pajamas, and it made a strange sound. The plastic was slightly translucent, and it looked like someone was taking a shower inside. After putting on a disguise, Charlotte quietly hid behind the door. As soon as he hid, Long Bing pushed open the bathroom door. She raised her hand, and the silencer in her hand aimed at the plastic curtain of the bathroom and fired 3 times in one breath. The 3 rubber bullets pierced through the plastic curtain and hit the pajamas that were hanging under the shower head. Charlotte suddenly jumped out, hugged Long Bing's waist, and pushed her to the ground. This time, Long Bing realized that she had been tricked. She hurriedly raised her gun, but Charlotte had already predicted this move. Before she could raise her gun, he grabbed her wrist and pressed his whole body against her. The man and woman lying on the bathroom floor were wearing only a pair of briefs and a sports bikini. Most of their bodies were in contact, and even the most sensitive parts were only separated by a thin piece of fabric. It was as if they were only there. Long Bing, who was pressed under Charlotte's body, suddenly raised her leg and hit Charlotte's waist with her knee. Charlotte also raised his leg and pressed his thigh against hers, defusing her attack. But even though he defused it, his thing also pressed against hers. At that moment, both of them seemed to be electrocuted and inexplicably stopped moving. As if feeling the change in Charlotte's body, Long Bing's cheeks suddenly turned red. She struggled to pull out the leg that was pressed by Charlotte and get rid of his wrestler's restraint. But not only did she not get rid of Charlotte, but she also caused inappropriate contact and pressure. In less than 10 seconds, she was speechless to find that Charlotte's face was red, and his breathing was also uneven. His reaction was also extremely obvious. Struggling and resisting brought about such an effect. Long Bing simply wanted to bang her head against the wall. She simply stopped moving. Okay, today's class is over. You can get up. Charlotte didn't move. You just said that today's class is over, but you sneaked up on me while I was taking a shower. I don't believe you. A killer will often choose to attack you when it's inconvenient for you. Then all the more I can't let you go unless you put down the gun and surrender to me. My pants are torn. Long Bing looked very embarrassed. Charlotte hurriedly got up to see what was going on. Bang, bang, bang. Bullets, screams, the sports bikini shorts were fine, but they were soaked with sweat. Chapter 115. As expected, Shinjo Industry Group placed new ordinary orders. The workers also passed the adaptation period and could produce normally. Charlotte was very clear that this considerable new order actually had nothing to do with his bet with Mu Jianfeng. The reason why Mu Jianfeng gave the order to Lima Manufacturing Company to process in the capital was because of his upcoming trip to Germany. You're going to Germany? In the office, when she heard that Charlotte was going to Germany for an inspection, Liang Xiao was very surprised. Charlotte said, in order to get this land, I promised Shinjo Industry Group to go abroad for an inspection and then come back to upgrade the machine tools. I know about this, and I support you going. After all, you're the only one in our company who can process the ultra-precision parts, but you're only one person. You won't be able to complete the orders even if you tire yourself to death. If you can upgrade our machine tools to the same level as those in Europe and America, our ordinary workers can also process it. In this way, we will have a unique market competitiveness. Liang Xiao's thoughts were actually the same as Charlotte's. Charlotte smiled. Senior sister, you're so considerate. I'll let you take care of the company when I'm not here. Liang Xiao pouted. I've never seen a boss like you. You're not in the company every day. I'm not your housekeeper. How can I help you take care of the company? People will gossip. That Charlotte was very clear about what the housekeeper meant. He said awkwardly, You're my senior sister. We're family. What gossip is there to gossip about? If anyone gossips about you, I'll make them leave. Liang Xiao's face looked better. Forget it. I owe you my previous life. Go in peace. You don't have to worry about the company. I'll take care of it for you. Thank you, senior sister. You're so nice. Charlotte said some nice words. I don't buy it. Come home with me after work today. My dad talks about you all day. He didn't say it, but I know he wants to see you. Come back with me, make him some good dishes, and accompany him for a drink or two. Liang Xiao said, Well, let's go back after work. I want to accompany him. Charlotte actually missed Liang Zhengchan. He treats you like a son. I'm a little jealous. Liang Xiao rolled her eyes at Charlotte. Her expression was very charming. Charlotte's heart skipped a beat. These words would have a different meaning if understood from another perspective. Liang Xiao was a little embarrassed. Have you thought about the product? Charlotte's attention was diverted, and he said, I don't have a concrete idea yet. I'll think about it carefully when I go to Germany this time. Maybe I can find a good idea there. Liang Xiao stretched and moved to the sofa. She muttered, I've had to deal with everything when you weren't here. I'm so tired, and my neck is so sore. Charlotte also understood and walked behind the sofa. Senior sister, I'll give you a massage. Okay. Liang Xiao smiled happily. She moved back and was ready to enjoy Charlotte's massage. She was really tired these past few days. Charlotte grabbed her snow-white neck and gently massaged her. His strength was very light, as if he was afraid that he would ruin her tender skin. Liang Xiao slightly frowned. Use a little more strength. Are you afraid that you'll ruin me? Charlotte's heart skipped a beat, and he secretly said, Massage is about the degree and stimulation of the meridians. If I can master the acupuncture points and meridians, A light massage would probably make her feel very comfortable, right? With this thought, Charlotte's left eye immediately entered another mode. He stared at her snow-white neck, and her skin and subcutaneous fat slowly disappeared from his field of vision. Soon he saw the blood vessels and nerves, as well as the special intersections of the meridians, which are the acupuncture points. Seeing her acupuncture points and nerve endings, Charlotte's 10 fingers moved over and gently massaged her acupuncture points and nerve endings. This change immediately had a very good effect. What's going on? It feels so comfortable. When did you learn how to massage? Liang Xiao obviously felt a lot more comfortable. She closed her eyes and seemed to be enjoying it. Her cheeks and neck also quietly had the kind of red marks that appeared because of comfort and excitement. The nerve endings and acupuncture points were very sensitive areas. When Charlotte used his fingers to stimulate them, of course she would feel very comfortable. This kind of comfort also included a comfort that would make a woman shy, which was why her neck and cheeks had the red marks. So it really has a very good effect. Later, I will go look at the acupuncture point and meridian map and remember it. Then, I will study massage or acupuncture. In the future, if she wants me to massage her, I can make her feel more comfortable. Maybe I can even treat patients that need acupuncture treatment. This thought appeared in Charlotte's heart. Being able to see the situation of acupuncture points and meridians with his own eyes, just based on this point, if he specialized in massage and acupuncture, he could easily become an expert in these two areas. In the future, after a period of immersion and research, it was not impossible for him to become a master in these two areas. Perhaps because of this thought, Charlotte's gaze moved to her pair of crystal-clear ears, and that area of the neural network once again entered the vision of his left eye. He moved his 2 thumbs over and pressed on the area behind her ears, where the nerve endings were the most abundant, and gently massaged it. A string of strange sounds suddenly floated out of Liang Xiao's little mouth. It seemed to be very painful, but also seemed to be very enjoyable. Her earlobes also suddenly turned red, appearing more delicate. Before Charlotte massaged a few more times, she couldn't help but open her eyes and said shyly and nervously, "What are you trying to do?" "Give you a massage, of course." Charlotte looked very serious. Liang Xiao glared at Charlotte angrily. "You can't massage that area. It's too sensitive." Charlotte smiled and said, "Is it comfortable?" Liang Xiao recalled the feeling just now and the shy body reaction. She said angrily, "Comfortable my ass. I'm not massaging it anymore. You are deliberately playing tricks on me. Why go back tonight? I will tell my dad that you bullied me." Charlotte, flattery had turned into bullying. Who could explain this to? At this moment, a security guard appeared at the door. He opened his arms as if he wanted to stop someone and said, "No, you can't see our boss Ya without an appointment. Get out of the way." Qi Jingqiu suddenly appeared and bumped into the security guard's arm with her chest out. The security guard seemed to be afraid of touching Qi Jingqiu's chest, so he stopped. Qi Jingqiu took the opportunity to step over the security guard's block and walked into the office. "Boss Xiaxi," the security guard wanted to explain. Charlotte said, "It's okay. You can go back to your post." The security guard responded and turned to leave the office. Qi Jingqiu strode towards Charlotte and Liang Xiao. She saw Liang Xiao, whose face was flushed and had a strange look in her eyes. Charlotte said aloud, "Jingqiu, didn't you receive the text I sent you? I'm not going to accept that order." Qi Jingqiu snorted coldly. "You have time to have fun in your office, but you don't have time to accept my order? What do you mean?" Charlotte's brows suddenly furrowed. Liang Xiao was not a woman who could be trifled with. She stood up from a sofa and said, "What are you talking about? You're a decent person, but you're behaving like a shrew. Watch your words, or I'll kick you out." Qi Jingqiu was about to retort, but Liang Xiao glared at her fiercely. Her lips trembled and she didn't dare to curse. In terms of beauty, she was not as good as Liang Xiao. In terms of temperament, she was even worse than Liang Xiao. But the most important thing was that Liang Xiao was a Wing Chun master. If Liang Xiao was annoyed and Liang Xiao beat her up, would Charlotte help her? Obviously not. Charlotte said, Jingqiu, I'm really sorry. I've thought about it again and again, but I still don't want to accept your order. You can find someone else. I'm really sorry to have delayed you for so long. Do you know how much this order is worth? Qi Jingqiu said excitedly. It's worth 3 million. You're so poor that you have to open a supermarket to subsidize your company. You can only earn 3 or 4 million a year, right? It won't take you a month to complete this order. What are you thinking? Charlotte said lightly, I'm short of money, but some money can't be earned and I don't want to earn it. Qi Jingqiu gritted her teeth and hesitated for a moment before saying, well, my client said that he can increase it to 4 million and my commission will be paid by him. Charlotte still shook his head. I've made it very clear. If you don't accept it, you can find someone else. You bastard. Qi Jingqiu cursed. Charlotte shrugged indifferently. Bastard is bastard. You can go. Your company will go bankrupt sooner or later. You'll be poor for the rest of your life. People like you should be poor for the rest of your life. Qi Jingqiu lost control of her emotions. No wonder Gu Qian said that you're just a lucky nouveau riche. You'll eventually go back to the construction site to carry bricks. You bitch. Liang Xiao couldn't bear it anymore. She rushed forward and waved her hand to slap Qi Jingqiu's cheek. Charlotte hurriedly blocked Liang Xiao's slap, and then pulled Liang Xiao back. Forget it. She's just like this. Why bother with her? Qi Jingqiu didn't dare to make a scene and retreated. Liang Xiao glared at Qi Jingqiu, but she didn't make another move. Charlotte looked at Qi Jingqiu and said tentatively, Jingqiu, this order of yours is from Gu Qian, right? You know my relationship with him. This is also the reason why I didn't accept your order. You. Qi Jingqiu's eyes flickered. What nonsense are you talking about? Charlotte said, I said, this order of yours is from Gu Qian, right? Hee hee. Qi Jingqiu sneered. You think you're so smart. If it was Gu Qian's order, would I be so stupid to come to you? I know what kind of relationship you have with him. Then who is this order of yours? Aren't you very smart? You can guess. I won't give you any more orders for screws in the future. After that, Qi Jingqiu turned around and walked out of the door. Charlotte secretly said in his heart, if it's not Gu Qian, then whose is it? This matter was really strange. After thinking for a moment, Charlotte took out his phone and dialed Qin Xiang's number. Hello, is this Qin Xiang? Qi Jingqiu just left my office. She may go to meet her mysterious client. Help me keep an eye on her. No problem. I'm really bored in the office. It's good to go out and exercise. Qin Xiang's voice sounded. He was very willing to do this kind of thing. Be careful. Got it. Qin Xiang hung up the phone. Liang Xiao was still angry. Why didn't you let me slap her just now? Her stinky mouth deserves a slap. Charlotte said with a smile, forget it. Why do you have to lower yourself to the same level as Qi Jingqiu? Don't be angry. I'll give you a massage to calm you down. Liang Xiao's face finally showed a smile. Okay, but you can't massage that place. Well, if you really want a massage, it's not impossible, but you can't massage too much. Just one massage will be enough. She obviously tasted the sweetness. She was very fond of the aftertaste and wanted to experience it again. Charlotte was in a dilemma. What did she mean? Should he massage it or not? Chapter 116. Bang, bang, bang. The sound of fists and feet colliding sounded in the living room. Charlotte and Liang Jingquan's attack and defense changed very quickly. In the exchange of blows between the master and disciple, Xiaolei had already given it his all, but Liang Zhengquan was still at ease. Liang Xiao watched from the side with a slight smile on her face. She quietly watched her father and her junior brother fighting. However, her eyes were fixed on Charlotte most of the time. He was sunny and handsome, strong and tall. His body exuded a simple and natural aura, which made people feel friendly. With a press of the armrest, Liang Zhengquan resolved Charlotte's long bridge jab. At the same time, he cut into Charlotte's empty space and hit Charlotte's chest with his elbow. Bang! With a muffled sound. Although Liang Zhengquan had reduced most of his strength, Charlotte was still knocked off the ground and fell a few steps before he could stand firm. Master, how can I be your opponent? Charlotte said, while rubbing his painful chest. Liang Zhengchun said with a smile. It's already very good. Your progress is much faster than mine. How long have you been learning Wing Chun? Don't worry. As long as you keep practicing, your achievements will definitely surpass mine. Charlotte grinned. Liang Zhengchun put away his smile, and his tone became serious. However, you definitely haven't been practicing martial arts seriously during this period of time. Last time when I fought with you, I pointed out the things that needed to be corrected, but this time you still made the same mistake. Also, your inner strength has not increased. It can be seen that you have been slacking off during this period of time and did not practice martial arts seriously. Charlotte touched his nose awkwardly. Master, he was very busy, but he was not a person who liked to make excuses, so he closed his mouth before he could explain. Liang Xiao said, Dad, Lei Zi has to manage a company. He is already very diligent. Don't scold him. Liang Zhengchun stared at Liang Xiao. And you are the same. You have been lazy during this time. You still have the face to speak for Lei Zi? Dad, huh? Liang Xiao just laughed. You still have the face to smile. Liang Zhengchun said sternly, both of you go to the study and practice the horse stance. Also, put a bowl of water on each of your heads and shoulders. Xia Lei and Liang Xiao looked at each other. Both of them had a bitter expression on their faces. Why are you still standing there? Liang Zhengchun said with a straight face. 2 hours, not a minute less. Charlotte and Liang Xiao braced themselves and walked to the study. Looking at the backs of the two children, a smile quietly appeared on Liang Zhengchun's face. In the study, Charlotte and Liang Xiao were both standing on a small pincer horse. Their left foot was in front and their right foot was behind, standing in an irregular position. His right foot took up 30% of the force, while his left foot took up 70% of the force. His body leaned back, like a turtle's back, like a frog's belly. Both of them had a bowl filled with water on their shoulders and heads. They faced each other and didn't dare to move. What's wrong with my dad today? Liang Xiao whispered. He was fine when we were eating and drinking, but he changed all of a sudden. Charlotte also whispered. It's normal for the master to be a bit strict. He could just punish you with the horse stance. Why did he punish me? Liang Xiao rolled her eyes at Charlotte. It must be because of you. Charlotte, oh right. When are you leaving for Germany? Liang Xiao's mind was very active. I'll leave after Long Bing has arranged everything. I'm not sure about the exact time, but I'm guessing it'll be in the next 2 days, Charlotte said. Long Bing had already started making the arrangements. With her efficiency, it really wouldn't take much time. How long will you be gone for? I don't know about that, but I'll be back as soon as possible. The two of them stood in a horse stance while chatting. Time passed very quickly. However, they still had to maintain the same posture and maintain strength in their legs and waist. The two of them quickly began to sweat. Sweat soaked Charlotte's vest. His strong muscles seemed to be coated with a layer of gym oil, and his masculine aura and char were very strong. Liang Xiao's cotton t-shirt was also soaked. The soft fabric stuck to her soft and delicate skin, and it was slightly transparent. Under the illumination of the light, the black bra underneath the cotton t-shirt was clearly revealed and could be seen at a glance. Although her short skirt was also soaked, because of the thick fabric, it wasn't transparent. However, because she was in the horse stance, a pair of white and tender legs were revealed from under the short skirt, creating a beautiful scene. Because she was standing in front of Charlotte, Charlotte's eyes naturally took in the scenery under the skirt. The extremely white and tender thighs, and the place protected by a line of black lace. In the beginning, the two of them were chatting, so Charlotte didn't notice these things. However, when there was nothing to say, his eyes were attracted by her. Facing her, it was almost impossible for him not to look at her. As soon as he looked at her, those beautiful scenery naturally entered his vision. The full and firm peaks, the slender and soft waist, the white and tender thighs, and the faintly discernible lace scenery. All of these factors were subtly influencing and stimulating him. In a moment, his left eye suddenly won over his willpower. With a slight twitch, Liang Xiao, who was 3 steps away from him, turned into a primitive tribal girl. Everything about her was in his vision, so clear, so wonderful, so exciting, so deadly. Then he awkwardly found that a part of his body quietly woke up and excitedly stood up in a horse stance. Damn it! Charlotte painfully closed his eyes, but this action was like an ostrich burying its head in the sand to avoid danger. Although he closed his eyes, his mind was full of Liang Xiao's figure, her majestic, her low, her beautiful legs. Why did you close your eyes? Liang Xiao curiously asked. Charlotte was a little nervous. Sweat got into my eyes. How about we take a break? Anyway, my dad is not here right now. Liang Xiao said. Charlotte didn't think it was good. At the door of the study, an old man wearing a traditional Chinese suit passed by with his hands behind his back. He coughed, and the two people in the study suddenly tightened their waist and legs. After Liang Zhengchun left, Liang Xiao no longer dared to mention anything about taking a break. She clenched her teeth and persisted. She found that Charlotte on the opposite side had his eyes closed all the time. Occasionally he would open his eyes, but his eyes were red. After a few seconds or 10 seconds, he quickly closed his eyes again. She thought he was very strange. For Charlotte, this horse stance was the most uncomfortable horse stance he had ever learned since he started learning Wing Chun Kung Fu. Because not only he himself was standing in the horse stance, even as something else was also standing in the horse stance. Moreover, he had to stand for more than an hour. It was really killing him. Finally, after 2 hours, before Charlotte had time to take a shower, he received a call from Qin Xiang. Lei, you should come and see. Qin Xiang went straight to the point. Charlotte's heart moved. What did you find? It's not clear on the phone. Come quickly. Qin Xiang said. I'm at the door of Paris Cafe on Taishan Road. As soon as possible. I'll be right there. Charlotte hung up the phone, took his coat, and went out. What happened? Where are you going? Liang Xiao asked. Charlotte said. Qin Xiang found something. I'll go and see. Then he said to Liang Zhengchun's room, Master, I'll go out for a while. Be careful. Liang Xiao said. Charlotte responded and left the Liang family. Liang Zhengchun opened the door and looked at Liang Xiao, who was sweating all over, and said after a while, It is a wild horse, just like you. Liang Xiao blinked her big eyes. Dad, what do you want to say? Liang Zhengchun shook his head gently and then went back into the room. Liang Xiao was stunned for a moment and muttered, Ridiculous. 10 minutes later, Charlotte drove to the place Qin Xiang said and saw Qin Xiang and his Yamaha electric bike. Qin Xiang also saw Charlotte, and he waved at Charlotte. Charlotte walked over. What did you find? Qin Xiang pointed to Paris Cafe. Do you see it? Qi Jingxiu, and the man opposite her. Charlotte looked in the direction Qin Xiang pointed. It was a floor-to-ceiling window, and behind the glass, Qi Jingxiu and a middle-aged man were sitting at a table. His gaze fell on a man's face, and when he saw the man's face clearly, his heart felt as if it had been squeezed by an invisible hand. All the blood in his heart was squeezed out, and it was empty. The man sitting opposite Qi Jingxiu had the same face as his father, Xia Changhe. How was this possible? Was that man his father who had been missing for 5 years? If he was his father who had been missing for 5 years, he had returned to Haizhu City. But why didn't he go home? If he was not his father who had been missing for 5 years, who was he? How could there be two people who looked exactly the same in this world? At this moment, Charlotte's mind was filled with many questions, and he was in a mess. Did you see it? Qin Xiang said, I've been to your house, and I've seen your family photo. When I saw this man, I thought of your father. Is he your father? Charlotte shook his head. He looks like him, but I'm not sure. If he is my father, why didn't he come to me? Qin Xiang frowned. I also think it's unbelievable. If he is really your father, he should go home, but he met Qi Jingxiu instead. I want to talk to him. Charlotte strode to Paris Cafe. Qin Xiang took a step after him, but in the end, she chose to stay. In such a situation, even if he followed, it would be useless. Charlotte walked very fast, and when he crossed the road, he forced several cars to stop. This was very dangerous, but he couldn't care less. His eyes were locked on the man, and he used his lips to read the conversation between the man and Qi Jingxiu. From the moment he found out that the man and Qi Jingxiu were talking, Qi Jingxiu had been the one talking. The man just sat quietly, looked at Qi Jingxiu, and listened to her. Just as Xia Lei approached the steps of the Café Noir de Paris, the man finally said, "He's not answering? Well, here's your reward." The man put a paper bag in front of Qi Jingxiu. The paper bag was bulging, and it seemed to contain a lot of money. After putting down the paper bag, the man got up and left. Xia Lei panicked and rushed into the Café Nocturne. Chapter 117. Just as he entered the door, a blonde young woman suddenly cut across and slammed into Charlotte's arms. "What are you doing?" The blonde woman looked very angry. She spoke Russian. "I'm sorry." Charlotte hurriedly apologized in Russian, then walked around the blonde woman to go inside. The blonde woman suddenly pulled Charlotte. "You want to leave after breaking my things?" Charlotte discovered that the Russian woman was holding a handicraft in her hand. It was a conch made of straw. After being hit by him, the conch turned into a flat conch. "An apology is not enough," the Russian woman said. She grabbed Charlotte's arm and did not let go. Charlotte was very anxious. He did not want to argue with the Russian woman. He took out his wallet and took out a few $100 bills and stuffed them into the Russian woman's hand. The Russian woman let go of Charlotte's hand. "Actually, I don't need that much." Charlotte was not in the mood to say anything to her. He quickly walked into the coffee shop. However, the man was already gone. Qi Jingxiu was still sitting at the table, looking down at the money bag that the man gave her. Charlotte's eyes quickly swept around the coffee shop. There were many customers, but the man's figure was nowhere to be seen. His eyes stopped at a door in the work area, then he ran to chase. The man who looked like his father could not leave from the front door. If he wanted to leave, he could only go through the back door. "Sir, you can't go in. This is the work area." A waiter blocked Charlotte's way. "I'm sorry, I'm looking for someone." Charlotte said. "You can't find someone either," the waiter said. Charlotte pushed the waiter away and chased through the door. The door was indeed the work area. The coffee shop staff were grinding coffee, baking pastries, making ice cream, and so on. It was a busy scene. At the end of the work area was a back door that led to the outside. When Charlotte reached the work area, the door was still shaking slightly, as if someone had just rushed out and didn't have time to close the door. Charlotte ran to the back door. The waiter who had blocked the way earlier chased after him, but before he could say anything, Charlotte had already chased him out of the back door. Outside the back door was a dark, unlit alley. There were buildings on both sides of the alley, and there were no doors. At the two ends of the alley were two streets, which were brightly lit and filled with endless traffic. However, whether it was the buildings on both sides or the streets on both sides, there was no sign of the man. He was so fast. Charlotte's left eye twitched slightly, and many footprints appeared on the dark ground. He quickly identified the man's footprints because he was the most recent person to leave through the back door, and his footprints were the freshest and most obvious. After confirming the man's footprints, Charlotte followed the footprints to the right side of the alley. He quickly chased the man to the end of the alley. There were people coming and going on the sidewalk outside the alley, and cars were coming and going on the road under the sidewalk, but there was no sign of the man. The man's footprints had also disappeared between the sidewalk and the road, and there was no way to continue tracking him. How can he be so fast? Does he know I'm chasing him? Who is he? Charlotte's heart was filled with surprise and confusion. Then he suddenly remembered something and turned to run into the coffee shop. He thought of the blonde Russian girl. Just now, if she hadn't pestered him, he could have stopped the man before he left. It seemed like a coincidence, but it was too much of a coincidence. He had an intuition that the Russian girl was the man's companion, and the man knew his identity, but he was unwilling to meet him. That had to be the case. Otherwise, why didn't the man come to him directly to place the order, but through Qi Jingxiu? Returning to the coffee shop, Qi Jingxiu saw Charlotte, and she looked very surprised. She was about to stop Xia Lei and say something, but Xia Lei acted as if he didn't see her and hurriedly ran past her. Charlotte chased him to the front door, but the blonde Russian girl was nowhere to be seen. The Russian girl was indeed the man's companion. She had long been lying in ambush at the front door, waiting for him to show up so she could bump into him. She had completed her mission, So how could she continue to stay here and wait for Charlotte to catch up and interrogate her? Charlotte returned to the coffee shop, walked straight to the opposite side of Qi Jingxiu, and sat in the seat that the man had sat before. Humph, you really were following me. Qi Jingxiu was the first to speak. Last time, you used this method to steal Liu Ying's client, and now you want to use this method to steal my new client? Charlotte took a deep breath and calmed down a little before saying, Jingxiu, I didn't want to steal your client. I just want to know who gave you this order. I want to know the identity of the man just now. Please tell me everything you know. Qi Jingxiu sneered. I haven't settled the score with you for following me, and you still have the face to ask me for my client's information? Who do you think you are? Do I need to satisfy all your requests? Jingxiu, I'm begging you, Charlotte said. Qi Jingxiu smiled. I really didn't expect that there would be a time when you would beg me. Tell me. Although she was mocking him, Charlotte still restrained his emotions. If it wasn't for the fact that the man looked exactly like his father, he wouldn't have bothered to beg her. Qi Jingxiu was silent for a moment. She looked at Charlotte quietly, as if she was thinking about something. Then, a hint of an ambiguous smile appeared on the corner of her mouth. You're begging me? How do you want to beg me? Jingxiu, that man. Charlotte wanted to say that the man looked like his father, but he swallowed the words back. Although Qi Jingxiu was his high school classmate, Charlotte's father never went to school, so Qi Jingxiu had never seen his father. This matter was very strange. He didn't want Qi Jingxiu to know too much, so he hesitated and changed his words. Tell me, what do you want? What do I want? I have to think about it. Qi Jingxiu looked at Charlotte with a smile. Under the table, she took off her high heels and put her foot in black stockings on Charlotte's knee. Charlotte's body suddenly stiffened. He suddenly understood what Qi Jingxiu wanted. Qi Jingxiu's foot, under the cover of the tablecloth, pried open Charlotte's closed knee, then stretched out against his thigh, and finally stopped in front of the obstacle. Her foot gently stepped, squeezed, pressed, and then scrupulously stepped on it. I said, there's nothing I can't get if I, Qi Jingxiu, want. Qi Jingxiu giggled. There's a good hotel nearby. Let's go there and talk. Charlotte resisted the feeling and the anger in his heart. Jingxiu, can we not do this? Tell me, who is that man? And how did he find you? Are you begging me? Is this how you beg people? Under the table, Qi Jingxiu's long legs were like the second hand of a watch, dexterous and gentle. She could feel the change in Charlotte. That change made her excited, and she, from beginning to end, looked like she had xia lay in the bag. Want an answer? Then go to bed with me. This was Qi Jingxiu's unspoken request. Agree or not? Charlotte was hesitant. Give his first time to a woman like Qi Jingxiu? He was not willing. However, when he thought of the man who looked almost exactly like his father, he couldn't help but want to nod and agree. But just as he was in a dilemma, his left eye fell on a cup of cappuccino that the man had ordered. The coffee was almost untouched, and it was still full. The cup was also very clean, without any fingerprints. However, there was a pool of coffee stain on the table under the coffee cup. Charlotte's gaze stopped on the pool of coffee stain, and suddenly found that it was actually some Russian letters. It meant be careful. Who did he tell to be careful? Me? Charlotte's brain was shocked. Is he really my father? Qi Jingxiu's foot was still playing tricks, and her voice had changed. Lei, I know you still like me. Let's go to a hotel and get a room. I'll tell you everything you want to know. Haven't you always wanted me? I'll give you everything. I'll also give you the places that my dead husband hasn't touched. She was teasing Charlotte, but her own reaction was even stronger than Charlotte's. Charlotte seemed to suddenly understand something. He reached out and grabbed Qi Jingxiu's leg, which was on his body, and pinched it hard. Ouch! Qi Jingxiu cried out in pain and quickly retracted her leg. She stared at Charlotte angrily and said, What are you doing? Charlotte shook his head. About this client, you actually don't know anything, right? Qi Jingxiu was stunned for a moment. I don't know. Do you know? Forget it. Go get a room yourself. I won't keep you company. Charlotte got up and left. Qi Jingxiu stared at Charlotte's back as he walked away. She was stunned for a long time before she said, How did he know I didn't know? This guy, I lowered myself to sleep with him, and he actually rejected me. Damn it. Then, she closed her legs tightly, and her face was flushed. Although Charlotte had already left, she was still reminiscing about how she had taken advantage of Charlotte. The reason why Charlotte changed his mind was simple. One reason was the Russian words left by the man, and the other reason was that the man was so mysterious and professional. How could he tell Qi Jingqiu his true identity? Charlotte walked across the street and returned to Qin Xiang's side. How was it? I saw you chasing after that man. Did you succeed? Qin Xiang asked with concern. Charlotte shook his head. He seemed to know that I was coming, and he had already arranged an escape route. He didn't want to see me, so it was useless for me to chase after him. Is he really your father? Charlotte smiled bitterly. I'm not sure, but I believe he will show up again. Qin Xiang shrugged. It seems that my efforts were in vain. Charlotte was silent for a moment before saying, Qin Xiang, don't tell anyone about this, okay? Qin Xiang said, I understand what you mean. Don't worry, I won't tell anyone. Let's go back. Xiao Lei sighed. It was as if he had been working for a whole day and was exhausted. Well, don't think too much about it. After saying this, Qin Xiang ignited the Yamaha electric bike's engine. With a roar, she drove into the driveway and went far away in the blink of an eye. Charlotte also returned to his Great Wall H6, and his mind was still recalling the man's appearance. Ring, 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 ring. A series of ringtones interrupted Charlotte's thoughts. He took out his phone and glanced at it, then slid the answer button. Hello, it's me. Longbing's voice came from the phone. I prepared everything. I'll wait for you at the airport. I'll be there in 2 hours. Charlotte said in surprise, so fast. After saying this, Longbing hung up the phone. Charlotte smiled bitterly and drove in the direction of the Liang family. In 2 hours, he could still say goodbye to Liang Xiao and Liang Zhengshan. Chapter 118. A day later, in a rented apartment in the industrial town of Essen in western Germany. Opening the window, one could see the bustling streets of Essen, a forest of tall buildings, an endless stream of cars and pedestrians. In fact, the scenery of the city was just like that. There was nothing new. The only difference was that everything here seemed to be in order, and most of the people here were tall and strict Germanic. Do you like this place? Longbing's voice came from behind. Charlotte looked back at her and said with a smile, I can't say that I like it very much. It's very clean and strict, but it lacks the human touch over there. I'm Chinese, and for us Chinese, only our own place is the most suitable for us. No matter how good Germany was, it was the Germany of the Germans, not the Germany of the Chinese. No matter how big the world was, only one's own home was the most comfortable. People who were far away from home would have such a feeling. I'm the same. Longbing also smiled lightly. Let's talk business. Did you memorize all the information I gave you? Recite it for me. Charlotte didn't even need time to think. My name is Tiger Liang, born on December 3rd, 1991. My home address is Building 51, Unit 1, Floor 1, Unit 1, Building 1, Zhuiyue District, Shu City. My German name is Lucas, and I came to Germany to work. I want to earn more money to improve my life. My residence permit number is 05792787, and the period of stay is 3 years. My work permit number is 811568798, and I can work in Germany for 3 years. The company I'm going to join is Krupp Machinery Manufacturing Company, which is one of the manufacturers of the Leopard 2 tank. My job position is an ordinary mechanic's assistant. Assistant was a polite way of saying it, but to put it bluntly, it was to do odd jobs for the mechanic. Longbing nodded. Yes, you remember it well. I also want to remind you that you're fluent in German. This is a good thing, but it's also a hidden danger. Outstanding people will always attract attention. It's best to talk less when interacting with people, and try not to attract attention. Yes, I can speak slowly, as if I'm recalling words. That's good. Also, you have to enter the Krupp manufacturing plant tomorrow morning. You have to find a man named Crew. He will arrange a job for you. I'll show you his information in the Krupp video. Destroy it after you've seen it. Take a look. I'll contact our people. Longbing gave Charlotte a portfolio and a USB flash drive for mobile phones. Charlotte nodded. After Longbing left, He looked at the information in the file. There was a photo of Crew in the portfolio. In the photo was a fat, bald, middle-aged man with blonde hair and a wretched look in his eyes. Then, he looked at Crew's information. The information was very detailed. Crew's date of birth, blood type, height, weight, and so on were all described. There were also descriptions of Crew's routine and hobbies. According to the information, Crew was a person who liked to gamble on horses and balls and was in debt. Charlotte was not surprised at all. Only such a person could be easily bribed and arranged to work in the factory. After reading Crew's information, Charlotte plugged the USB flash drive that Long Bing had given him into the mobile phone that Long Bing had prepared for him and looked at the Krupp Mark video. Krupp Mark was one of the most important large machinery manufacturing companies in Germany. The company also had the blood of the legendary German family, the Krupp family. The Krupp family had manufactured many Krupp cannons for the Qing dynasty and guarded the country for the Qing dynasty. Although the family had retired from the stage of history, this video still gave a very detailed introduction. There's also a video of the Krupp Mark factory in the video. Krupp Mark had several manufacturing bases. Charlotte was going to branch base on the outskirts of Essen. The video also emphasized the situation of this branch base. Xia Lei memorized all of the contents. After watching the video, Charlotte had nothing to do. The man who looked like his father, Xia Changhe, appeared in his mind again. Should I tell her about the man? Until now, Charlotte hadn't made up his mind. In fact, if it weren't because the man looked too much like his father, Xia Changhe, he would have told Long Bing about it. He had his own concerns about this matter because it was very strange from beginning to end. If he told Long Bing before he fully figured out the truth and let her intervene, wouldn't it be terrible if the man was really his missing father? Long Bing returned. She saw Charlotte in a daze by the window, so she said, "Have you read the information I gave you?" Charlotte came back to his senses. "While I looked at it, I will have time to memorize the information in the evening." Long Bing reminded him, "You'd better not remember it wrong. This is very important." Although Germany isn't comparable to the United States, the European Union and the United States are on the same side in many areas. This time, the European Union and the United States are on the same side in terms of the technology blockade policy against China. Most importantly, the European Union and the United States share intelligence. Germany also has American military bases and intelligence networks that cover various regions. Once we are discovered, we will all be in danger. Charlotte smiled bitterly. "You make it sound like we are spies. Are we doing espionage?" Long Bing said, "There's nothing wrong with you thinking that way. In short, be careful in everything you do. Remember?" Charlotte nodded. "Let's go out and buy some daily necessities. We can also familiarize ourselves with the environment here," Long Bing said. Charlotte suddenly remembered something. "By the way, you haven't told me what our relationship is." "If someone asks me, how should I answer?" Long Bing looked at Charlotte with a strange look in her eyes. She was silent for a moment before she said, "After some research, the higher-ups have decided that I am your wife." "Huh?" Charlotte looked very surprised. "You're only telling me now about such a big thing? The higher-ups are too slow, aren't they? I'm not prepared at all. What preparation is needed? It's not real." Long Bing rolled her eyes at Charlotte. "At first, they wanted me to pretend to be your girlfriend or fiancée. But considering that it would not be good for my identity, they held another meeting and asked me to pretend to be your wife. We have only been married for half a year. I came to the United States with you to seek development. I don't need to work. You can support me." Charlotte was speechless. "Actually, this is also to prevent a sudden investigation by the German Immigration or Labor Administration. This is just to better cover our identities. There are some details that we have to pay attention to," Long Bing said. Charlotte said, "Okay, Laura." Laura was Long Bing's German name. She also had a fake Chinese name, Chunli. Long Bing reached out and held Charlotte's hand intimately. "Lucas, let's go." She suddenly entered the role of Lucas's wife. Charlotte was not used to it. He stiffened for a moment before slowly relaxing. This kind of gap was unavoidable. After all, Long Bing was a professionally trained agent, and he was just an ordinary person. The two left the apartment building and strolled and shopped on the nearby streets. Long Bing played the role of a wife to the fullest. She either held Charlotte's hand or acted coquettishly to get Charlotte to buy her what she liked. It gave Charlotte the feeling that she had suddenly become a different person. She was not the iceberg-like Long Bing that he was familiar with, but a gentle and cute little woman. The two went out empty-handed, but when they came back with big and small bags. As soon as they entered the door, Charlotte relaxed and said, "We don't have to act like this, right? I don't think anyone is paying attention to us." Long Bing shook her head and said with a serious expression, "No matter where we appear, there will be people paying attention to us. It's just the difference between having a purpose and not having a purpose. Can you tell what a person is hiding in their heart? You can't, so you can't be sure who is a disguised agent or intelligence agent. Here, because of what we have to do, we have to enter into our respective roles every minute. Only by doing this can we avoid being exposed at any moment due to negligence." After a pause, she said, "Consider this a new lesson for you." Indeed, although Charlotte had the ability to see through a person's heart, he could not see what secrets were hidden in a person's heart and what motives were hidden. There were so many people on the street. Who knew if there were any special agents or intelligence agents hiding among them? Okay, I'll remember. Charlotte's gaze inadvertently fell on the only double bed in the room. He suddenly thought of something, and his expression became a little nervous. That, when you said every minute, does that include sleeping time? Long Bing nodded slightly. Charlotte raised his hand and pointed at the double bed. He said tentatively, "Then tonight Long Bing nodded again. "Let's sleep together." Charlotte was stunned on the spot. He couldn't help but start to picture the scene of him and Long Bing sleeping on the same bed. That feeling made him even more nervous. Long Bing stared at Charlotte. "If you have any improper thoughts and want to mess around, I will." She raised a hand and then made a scissors gesture. There was a click. Charlotte looked at her speechlessly. Dinner was a typical German dinner. There was ham, bacon, sour soup, and a plate of fruit salad. For Charlotte, cooking exotic dishes was so easy that he only needed to look at the recipe and cooking techniques. In the kitchen, he didn't need to show any acting skills. He was already a good husband. After dinner, Charlotte curled up on the sofa in the small living room and watched TV to delay going to bed. But no matter how he delayed it, he still had to go to bed. On the other hand, Long Bing was much more natural than him. She had already gone to bed an hour before Xia Lei arrived. When Charlotte entered the bedroom, she was already asleep. The light in the room was not turned on, but that didn't prevent Charlotte from seeing the situation on the bed. Long Bing was wearing very thin pajamas. Her body was only covered with a thin summer quilt. Her long legs were exposed to the air. Lying on her side, her body curves were fully revealed. Her slender waist and hips were indescribably seductive. Charlotte sighed softly and climbed onto the bed. He didn't have the habit of wearing pajamas, but this time was a special situation. He also wore a set of pajamas. It was a short-sleeved shirt and shorts. The bed was full of the faint fragrance of Long Bing. The fragrance of this woman was not enjoyable for Charlotte, but uncomfortable, which made him feel nervous. After lying down, he didn't dare to move. "Don't you want a quilt?" Long Bing suddenly turned over and looked at Charlotte beside her. Charlotte was startled by her. "Aren't you asleep? You're very nervous." How am I nervous?" Long Bing chuckled. "Well, I was wrong. You're not nervous at all. Do you want the quilt?" Charlotte nodded. Long Bing covered Charlotte with a quilt. Their bodies were under the same quilt. Then they didn't speak and slept with their eyes open. The bed was a small bed of 5 meters. It was a little crowded for 2 adults to sleep on it. Charlotte's thigh was against Long Bing's thigh. Their arms inevitably touched. It was a little awkward. The two chose to sleep on their side at the same time. But as they moved, their butts bumped into each other silently. Long Bing's breasts were soft and bouncy. They seemed to contain a mysterious electric current. Charlotte was electrocuted, and his whole body stiffened. When their butts touched, the two of them laid down and changed from lying on their side to lying flat. Long Bing looked at Charlotte. Charlotte looked at the ceiling. After some time, Charlotte suddenly felt that the arm that was next to Long Bing was a little itchy. He reached out to scratch it, but accidentally touched the very soft part of Long Bing. I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. Charlotte hurriedly explained. Long Bing stretched her hand out from under the quilt and made a scissors gesture in front of Charlotte. There was a silent click. Charlotte. Chapter 119. Early the next morning, Charlotte arrived at the Krupp-Mark Machinery Manufacturing Company's manufacturing plant on the outskirts of Essen. It was 7:40. Germans usually went to work at 8 a.m. He arrived 20 minutes early to make a good impression on his first day of work. After asking for directions, Charlotte found the office of the Human Resources Department. There was no one in the office, so he stood at the door and waited. At this time, neatly dressed people entered the office building and entered different offices to prepare for the day's work. At about 7:56, a middle-aged man came to the door of the Human Resources Department's office. Although it was the first time they met, Charlotte recognized him at a glance. It was Crew. "Hello, Mr. Crew." Charlotte greeted him in German. Crew looked at Charlotte and said tentatively, "Lucas?" Charlotte nodded. "Yes, I'm Lucas. Please take care of me." Crew said, "Come in. I have to talk to you about work matters." Charlotte followed him into the office. The furnishings in the office were very simple. There was a common office space, a few desks, and a water dispenser. That was all. Crew sat in his office chair, turned half a circle, and looked at Charlotte. "Do you have any previous work experience in machining?" Xiaolei had heard it very clearly, but he still pretended to be having a hard time listening. After pausing for a few seconds, he said, "Yes, I have work experience in this area. Mr. Crew, this is my resume. Please take a look." After that, he handed the long, prepared resume to Crew with both hands. Crew didn't even look at it. There's no need to look at it. You just have to do odd jobs for the mechanic. It's enough to be familiar with the basic operation. However, which mechanic should I assign you to? What a headache. At this moment, a woman in a blue work uniform came in. She was very young and about 1.8 meters tall. She had a curvaceous figure that was very provocative. She was tall, and her figure was tall. What was even rarer was that her facial features were also very exquisite, especially her pair of azure eyes, which looked especially clear like blue gems in the sea, very attractive. Her lips were plump, tender, and moist. This kind of lips would make men with rich imagination unable to help but fantasize about the feeling of kissing her. And even worse fantasies, she had a badge pinned to her chest, and on it was her profession description. She was a high-level mechanic. Her name was Anina. In Germany, female machinists were not rare, but such a beautiful, sexy, and young female machinist was very rare, not to mention that her position was much higher than the average machinist. "Anina, what are you doing here?" A smile appeared on Crew's face, but his smile gave off a vulgar and wretched feeling. As he spoke, his eyes were fixed on Anina's particularly spectacular chest. It was not difficult to see what kind of vulgar thoughts he was thinking about from this action alone. Anina frowned slightly, and she said, "I'm here to ask for someone. My assistant resigned half a month ago, and the company has not assigned me an assistant yet. I'm now doing the work of 2 people. If you don't give me an assistant today, I'll go on strike." Crew stood up, pointed at Charlotte, and said, "I've never forgotten about your matter. This is the assistant I've assigned to you." It had to be said that this guy's reaction was very fast. Charlotte also extended his hand with a friendly smile on his face. "Hello, my name is Lucas." Anina did not extend her hand to shake Charlotte's hand, but looked at Charlotte with a questioning look. "You?" Charlotte awkwardly retracted his hand. Anina said again, "Mr. Crew, you know that I'm responsible for the maintenance of precision machinery. My previous assistant was a mechanic with 6 years of work experience. Now you're giving me such a young person, and an Asian at that. Are you kidding me?" Crew said, "How can there be such a suitable assistant? If you want it, then take it. If not, then forget it. I'll give it to someone else." "Then when will my assistant be here?" "That's hard to say. If you don't want it, then you'll have to wait for half a year," Crew said. "You?" Anina looked very angry, and then she looked at Charlotte again. "Do you have relevant work experience?" Charlotte said, "A little. I'll give you a 3-day trial period. If you can't do it, then leave. To be my assistant, you must be capable. If you don't have the ability, I'd rather not have an assistant. Anina was not polite at all. Charlotte was not angry at all. If you're not satisfied, I'll leave automatically. Come with me. Anina reluctantly left the Human Resource Department's office. Charlotte nodded to thank crew and then left with Anina. Anina took Charlotte to a workshop. There were many workers in work clothes working in the workshop. Some were cutting, some were using lathes to process parts, and some were assembling mechanical products. It was a busy scene. Xiao Lei thought that this workshop was where he worked, but Anina led him through the workshop and into a separate work shed at the back of the workshop. As soon as he entered the shed, Xiao Lei was immediately startled. This was because he saw a Leopard 2 tank that had been disassembled into 8 pieces. The tank's engine had been dismantled into pieces. In Anina's shed, there was an ultra-precision CNC machine tool, as well as cutting and welding equipment and so on. It was very complete. Seeing these equipment, Charlotte's heart suddenly moved. There's only me and her in this place. There's less risk for me to steal secrets. This time, I'm really lucky. This is where I work, Anina said. As you can see, I'm mainly responsible for maintenance work. Do you have any experience in this area? Charlotte wanted to say no, but after thinking for a moment, he said, I have a little experience. I can reduce your workload. Anina looked at Xiao Lei again. Your German is pretty good, but just having good spoken English isn't enough. Can you read some professional manuals? Charlotte nodded. I can understand most of them. Coming to Germany is my dream, so I've studied German for 3 years. Anina casually picked up a German manual from her workbench and threw it to Charlotte. I don't really believe you. Read it to me. Charlotte flipped through the manual and read it slowly. This product is suitable for open-pit mines. This product is produced by Mark. This company owns all the patents for this product. Note, Charlotte could have finished reading the manual smoothly, but he deliberately slowed down and mispronounced a few words on purpose. This was what Long Bing had told him, and he hadn't forgotten. After listening to Charlotte, Anina's face finally relaxed a little. Not bad. It's already very good that you can reach this level of German. Show me what you can do. 3 days. If you can get my approval in 3 days, you can keep your job. Charlotte said, I'm ready. What's my job today? Anina looked around, then pointed at a motorcycle parked in the shed and said, You said you have experience in maintenance. That motorcycle is my motorcycle. It can barely be ridden, but it's very slow. There's also a malfunction sound in the engine. Can you fix it? Charlotte took a look. It was a Halley Breakout motorcycle. In China, this motorcycle was sold for nearly 300,000 yuan. It could be said to be the Rolls-Royce of motorcycles. However, the value of the motorcycle wasn't the point. The point was that Anina didn't trust him. She asked him to fix the motorcycle, which was obviously to make things difficult for him. A slight look of contempt flashed in Anina's eyes. She said, What? Don't you know how to fix it? In Germany, even non-professional mechanics can fix motorcycles. Can't your China mechanics even do this? Charlotte could see that Anina seemed to have some racist tendencies. She looked down on Asians. Charlotte had never had any experience in repairing motorcycles, but Anina's words provoked his temper. He looked straight at Anina, and a contemptuous smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Isn't it just a motorcycle? What's so difficult about it? Give me an hour, and I'll get rid of all its problems. An hour? Anina looked at Charlotte in surprise. Then she laughed. Lucas, right? Are you kidding me? Charlotte said, I'm not kidding you. Anina snorted. Lucas, do you know that this motorcycle is my means of transportation? I ride it to work. I don't know what's wrong with it now. Even if it's me, if I want to fix it, I need to first remove the engine and carefully check its problems, and then find a way to solve the problem. What I want to tell you is that even if it's me, I need at least 5 hours. You said that you can get rid of all its problems in an hour. Do you mean that you're better than me? Charlotte said lightly, I don't mean to offend you, but I really don't need 5 hours to fix this motorcycle. Anina's golden eyebrows slightly raised. Well, I'll time it for you. If you can fix my motorcycle in an hour, I'll take you for a ride, and then I'll treat you to authentic German black beer. It's a deal. Charlotte said. Wait, Anina said, If you can't do it in an hour, or even if you can't fix my motorcycle, then you'll disappear from my sight. I don't like an arrogant and ignorant guy working with me. You start the time. Charlotte was too lazy to talk to her. He carried a mechanic's toolbox and walked to the breakthrough Halley motorcycle. Anina glanced at the watch on her hand and secretly said, "Arrogant guy, do you think this is a motorcycle made in China? Without professional testing equipment, do you want to use your hands and a pair of eyes to fix my breakthrough? After an hour, you'll have to get out of my sight." Charlotte walked to the front of the breakthrough motorcycle. He first quietly observed the body of the motorcycle, and then locked his eyes on the engine of the motorcycle. After that, he seemed to be in a daze and didn't move for as long as 2 minutes. "Huh." Anina laughed contemptuously. "What? You don't have a clue. Don't show off." But at this moment, Charlotte seemed to have found and confirmed something. He picked up a wrench and began to dismantle the motorcycle's engine. "Hey," Anina said, "my motorcycle is worth 20,000 euros. If you break it, I'll ask you for compensation." Charlotte looked back at her. "Can you shut your mouth?" Anina was stunned on the spot. Is this the attitude an assistant should have? Chapter 120. What was the simplest way to repair mechanical products, including the engine of a motorcycle? The simplest way was to see the faulty part at a glance, then replace it. However, no one in the world could see what part was broken inside the engine. Even the most experienced mechanic could only judge what part was broken based on experience, then disassemble it for inspection. However, even the most experienced mechanic would make many misjudgments. After all, years and experience could not replace the roll of eyes. However, Charlotte was the only exception in this world, because his left eye could see through any object and see things that others could not. In fact, during the 2 minutes he stared at the engine, he had already seen through the structure of the entire engine and found the fault. It was because there was too much carbon, causing the connecting rod of one of the pistons of the engine to break, causing the piston to deviate and the movement gap to be too large. This was why the engine was weak and made abnormal noises. To solve this problem, he only needed to replace the connecting rod of the piston ring and clean up the carbon in the engine. Charlotte dismantled the engine very quickly. In a quarter of an hour, he had dismantled the engine of the breakaway motorcycle and removed the faulty piston ring. Anina watched the whole process. In the first few minutes, her heart was full of worry, and she began to regret using her own motorcycle to test Charlotte's ability. However, after a few minutes, when she saw Charlotte's movements were light and skillful, there was a trace of confusion in her heart. She could not help but wonder if this kid could really repair her motorcycle. In the end, when she saw Charlotte take out the faulty piston without even inspecting it, her jaw almost dropped to the ground. The reason why she was so surprised was very simple. Even if she, a self-proclaimed high-level mechanic, was to repair this motorcycle, she would definitely not be able to find the cause of the problem so quickly. Charlotte removed the connecting rod that connected the piston, then got up and walked to the welding machine to correct and weld the cracks on the connecting rod. Anina could not hold it in anymore. She leaned over again. "You actually used welding to repair the delicate parts of the motorcycle engine. Aren't you being too arrogant? You have to know that adding or losing a little weight will make it unable to work properly." Although she still had a questioning attitude, her tone was much more polite than before. Charlotte ignored him. He welded the crack on the connecting rod, then took the connecting rod to the machine for further processing. Anina leaned over again. "I'm talking to you. Why are you ignoring me?" Charlotte raised his head and glanced at her. "If I don't do this, can you give me a new connecting rod? But you can't ensure the precision of the parts. If you hastily install it, the engine of the motorcycle will definitely have problems," Anina said in a professional manner. Charlotte said, "You don't believe me? What I said is the truth. Why are you so stubborn? Do you never accept other people's opinions?" Charlotte said, "I think you are deliberately stalling for time, aren't you?" "You." Anina was so angry that she couldn't speak. Charlotte ignored her and immersed himself in processing the connecting rod on the machine. He admitted that his attitude wasn't good, but compared to Anina's attitude just now, especially her belittling of China's industrial level, he wouldn't easily forgive her. Sometimes, when it was necessary to be serious, she was no exception, even if she was a woman. In less than 10 minutes, Charlotte had finished processing the connecting rod. He removed the connecting rod and brought it close to his eyes to observe it carefully to ensure its accuracy. It was this simple action that made Anina's beautiful blue eyes widen. She was extremely surprised because what she saw was a perfectly intact connecting rod without any weld marks. In fact, even she couldn't weld to this degree. You? Anina took a deep breath. Mr. Lucas, you? How did you do it? Charlotte rolled his eyes at her, then took the connecting rod and walked to the engine of the motorcycle. He still looked like he couldn't be bothered to talk to her. You're really rude. Anina was very angry and depressed, but she still followed him eagerly. She was very curious about the effect of the parts that Charlotte repaired by hand. At this time, Anina had actually acknowledged Charlotte's professional ability, and her heart began to accept Charlotte. It was just that even she didn't want to admit it. Charlotte spent another 25 minutes to reassemble the disassembled engine and install it on the motorcycle. Then he took 2 steps back. I'm done. Check the time and see if it's an hour. Anina came back to her senses. She hurriedly looked at her watch, and she was shocked again. Charlotte had used a total of 53 minutes. Not even an hour. It seems that I didn't use much time. You can try it, said Charlotte. Anina took out the key, inserted it into the keyhole, and turned on the ignition. The engine of the motorcycle roared. It was a very normal sound, without any abnormal noise. This is impossible. Anina couldn't believe that Charlotte could repair the motorcycle to this level. Charlotte sneered. Miss Anina, are you saying this because I'm Chinese? It's undeniable that Germany is currently more advanced than China. But do you think that a nation that is thousands of years ahead of you won't surpass you one day in the future? Or do you not want to see that day come closer? Mr. Lucas, what do you mean? Do you think I'm a racist? I can tell you with certainty that I'm not. Anina felt that she had found the reason why Charlotte was unhappy with her, and she was also angry. Charlotte shrugged and shut his mouth. He didn't want to continue arguing with her. At this time, as a man, he should actually give in. If they continued to fight, it would become endless. Anina also restrained herself. She knew very well that her previous attitude was very unfriendly, and it was understandable that Charlotte was unhappy with her. She also didn't want to continue arguing with Charlotte. She put down the kickstand of the breakthrough and rode it out of the shed. Charlotte also walked out of the shed and watched Anina ride her motorcycle on the road in the factory. After the repair, the motorcycle's performance was very good. Her upper body was almost lying on the fuel tank, and one of her perky buttocks was raised backward, making it look more and more plump. The blue overalls were fully stretched out by her buttocks, as if a layer of blue skin was stuck to her buttocks, and the curve of her buttocks was clearly revealed. European women have really good figures. Charlotte couldn't help but have this thought in his mind. Then, his left eye suddenly twitched slightly, and the blue overalls on Anina's body disappeared without a sound. Her big white bear, which seemed to be full of electricity, naturally came into his sight. Charlotte inexplicably sighed and reached out to pat his forehead. Then, he was depressed to find that he didn't wash his hands just now. If he used his greasy and dusty hand to pat his forehead, it wasn't hard to imagine what his forehead would look like. Anina didn't ride far, as she quickly reversed back. There was a harsh sound of rubber tires rubbing against the ground. Anina stopped the motorcycle next to Charlotte. She looked at Charlotte and suddenly laughed. Mr. Lucas, your face. You look like a cute tabby cat. Huh? Charlotte smiled awkwardly. How is it? Did I fix your motorcycle? Is it okay? Anina jumped off the motorcycle, walked in front of Charlotte, and suddenly gave Charlotte a firm hug. Not only that, she also very affectionately patted Charlotte's back. This change in attitude made Charlotte a little uncomfortable. Anina let go of Charlotte and said with a smile, Mr. Lucas, I apologize for my previous impoliteness. You were right. Maybe I really have a prejudice against you China mechanics, but you have corrected my point of view. You are the best mechanic I have ever seen. You are fully qualified to be my assistant. I'm sure that we will have a good time working together. Charlotte also smiled very gracefully. Thank you. You win, I will fulfill my promise. I will take you for a ride after work in the afternoon, and then we will go to the bar to drink dark beer. Anina said. Charlotte said, That's not necessary. I have to go home after work in the afternoon. Anina interrupted Charlotte's words. You have done what you should have done, but you don't give me a chance to do what I should have done. Mr. Lucas, are you still angry with me? Okay, I will take your car to the bar. Charlotte changed his mind. Anina had already expressed her goodwill to him. If he insisted on not going, he would offend her. The two returned to the workshop. The day's work was to repair the engine of the Leopard 2 tank. After a day of work, Charlotte found that Anina was a workaholic. Once she started working, she couldn't stop. Her work style was also meticulous. She would strictly follow the established standards. For example, if there was a rule that a screw should be twisted 12 times, she would never twist 10 times. From her, Charlotte could feel the rigorous style of the Germans. This also made him feel that there was an inevitable reason why the German manufacturing industry was so developed. After work, the two took a shower in the factory's bathroom and then left the factory together on a breakout motorcycle. The breakout motorcycle required the rider to lie on the mailbox to drive, and the rider naturally had to lean forward. As a result, Charlotte, the passenger, had to hold Anina's waist to sit steadily. Plus, Anina's speed was very fast, so not only did he need to hold Anina's waist, but he also had to hold her tightly. The breakout roared on the road, and the wind whistled in his ears. Charlotte only held Anina's waist, and one of Anina's buttocks was between his legs. There was a very secret contact between them. This contact made him inexplicably nervous. He wanted to move back a little, but when he saw the number 159 on the motorcycle, he couldn't help but move forward a little. Wasn't she afraid of falling to her death? This was the question that Charlotte was thinking about until they arrived at the bar. Every time he thought about this question, he couldn't help but move forward a little. Chapter 121. There were a lot of young people in the bar, and it was very lively. After Anina drank a few glasses of beer, she went to the dance floor to dance. Charlotte sat alone in front of a small table, quietly thinking about something. In a day's work, he had touched the precision machine 8 times. Other than the time when he repaired Anina's motorcycle, he used X-ray vision on the machine for the other 7 times. After 7 times, the internal structure and wiring of the machine were all stored in his left eye. At this time, when he thought about it, the structure and wiring appeared in his mind like pictures. The machine tool in Anina's shed isn't the most advanced machine tool in Germany, but it still surpasses the highest level in Hua Nation. This gap is at least 30 years in terms of time. If I want to upgrade my machine, I need to get in touch with more advanced machines. Also, the structure is not the most important thing. The most important thing is the CNC program. How do I solve this problem? Charlotte thought hard in his heart. The difference between a precision machine and a normal machine was the CNC program. Without the CNC program, no matter how precise the machine was, it would not work. Therefore, understanding its structure was not enough. He also needed to get the CNC program. But the problem was, the structure could be seen with his left eye, but how could he see the program, which was virtual? I need to find a way to get in touch with more models of precision machine. The more advanced, the better. At the same time, I need to learn about the CNC program. If I can specialize in it, that would be the best. If I can't, I need to find a way to steal the related software or chips. Charlotte had this plan in his heart. He knew that he was not a spy, but what he was doing now was spying. Before coming here, he still had a choice, but after coming here, he had no choice. The sooner he finished the mission, the sooner he would be out of danger. The DJ in the bar played a very strong beat music. The young people on the dance floor also became active, dancing to their heart's content. Charlotte's gaze fell on the dance floor. He quickly saw Anina. She was without a doubt the most beautiful woman on the dance floor. There were a few men dancing around her, trying to please her. Anina, on the other hand, seemed to enjoy the feeling of being surrounded by people. She danced more and more excitedly, and her full breasts bounced and swayed with the rhythm of the music, rippling, seductive waves. Charlotte's mind couldn't help but recall the scene of her lying on the motorcycle, that's shining white. However, at this moment, a black youth reached out and touched Anina's buttocks. "What are you doing?" Anina turned around and glared at the black youth. The black youth, who took advantage of her, smirked. "Why are you pretending to be serious?" "Shameless," Anina scolded. "You disgust me." The other black youth took the opportunity to touch Anina's buttocks. Anina turned around and slapped the face of the second black youth who touched her. "Pa!" The slap was so hard that it could be heard even through the music. UB*TCH. The young black man who had been beaten was furious. He reached out and grabbed Anina's long blonde hair. With a tug, Anina's head was instantly pulled down by him. The bar's security guard strode forward. A few black youths suddenly stood in front of the bar's security guard. One of the black youths raised a finger full of tattoos and pointed at the burly security guard. "Don't move. This has nothing to do with you. Otherwise, you will become the enemy of the Black Dynasty, and you will die a horrible death." The security guard seemed to be very afraid of the group of black youths, and he took 2 steps back. Charlotte stood up and walked towards the dance floor, but he stopped at the edge of the dance floor. Actually, when the first black youth touched Anina's buttocks, he had already seen it. When Anina turned around and scolded the other black youth, he wanted to go up and help. However, at that moment, he suddenly remembered his identity and his purpose. He was very clear that it wouldn't be a problem for him to go up and deal with a few black youths. But the problem was that once he injured someone, the Essen City Police would definitely investigate. At that time, it would be hard to say how many people would notice a Chinese who knew Kung Fu. Moreover, he would face an even worse possibility, which was that he would be deported for violating German law. His and Long Bing's mission would be declared a failure in advance. Just as Charlotte was feeling a headache and hesitating, the black youth who was grabbing Anina's hair dragged her towards the back door. Anina shouted for help, but no one dared to go up. No one in the bar was willing to offend a notorious gang for a stranger. Charlotte's heart skipped a beat, and he quickly walked in the direction of the back door. Before the gang member brought Anina out of the back door, he wouldn't close the door first. Outside the back door was an alley with a few large trash cans. The bar's trash was all stored in the trash cans, and the sour stench coming from the trash cans could be smelled from afar. The stench was like a barrier, and no one was willing to go near it. There was no light in the alley, and it was pitch black. Charlotte took off his shirt, covered his face, and hid behind a trash can. The back door was pushed open, and a few black youths pushed Anina out. "Bitch!" The black youth who was pulling Anina's hair pushed Anina to the ground and said fiercely, "You dare to slap me? I'll let you have a taste of black people's power. Ha ha ha." A few black youths surrounded Anina, who was on the ground. What do you want?" Anina said in horror. At this time, she had lost all her pride, and there was only fear in her heart. "What we want?" The leading black youth laughed lewdly. "We won't let go of a free white chick. After we've had our fun, we'll sell you to the black market. A white chick like you must be worth a lot of money." "Lucas!" Anina suddenly shouted. "Lucas!" "Who is she calling?" A black youth asked. "Is that her boyfriend?" A black youth mocked. "Or is she calling Batman? She wants to call a free hero to save her." The leading black youth said, "She has companions, and they might have already called the police. We have to leave here and bring this bitch to our territory. We'll play her to death." "All right." A black youth laughed lewdly. "This kind of white chick is very clean. Even the condoms can be skipped, haha." The group of black youths laughed loudly. The leading black youth grabbed Anina's hair again and dragged her up from the ground. Anina cried, "Please let me go. I'll give you my wallet. I have 1,000 euros. The leading black youth sneered. "Everything you have is ours. You better behave, or else I'll kill you right now." The few black youths dragged Anina towards the exit of the alley. At this time, a figure suddenly jumped out from behind a rubbish bin, holding a brick in his hand, and smashed it down on the head of the black youth walking at the back. Bang! With a muffled sound, the black youth walking at the back was instantly knocked down by the brick. However, before the black youth could react, the masked person smashed the brick on the head of another black youth who had just turned around to look. Bang! With a muffled sound, the brick shattered, and the black youth who had first turned around to see what was happening also fell to the ground. "Kill him!" The leading black youth roared angrily, and he reached for his gun. The masked person suddenly passed through the gap between two black youths and punched the leading black youth in the throat. The speed was so fast that it was like a person jumping from the top of a building. Before the leading black youth could blink, the masked person's fist had already hit his throat. The throat was one of the most vital parts of the human body, and a heavy blow would cause temporary suffocation. How could he pull out his gun and shoot when he was suffocated? The remaining two black youths only then realized what was happening, and they instinctively reached for their guns. However, the masked person was obviously faster than them. Both of his hands chopped down at the same time, hitting the hands of the two black youths that were pulling out their guns. His hands are like hard iron, and the two black youths who had their wrists chopped immediately cried out in pain. The masked person's fists were like the wind, and his fists attacked two targets at once. In the blink of an eye, who knew how many punches had landed on the bodies of the two black youths? In just a few seconds, when he retracted his fists, the two black youths had already fallen to the ground like pigs. Stunned, Anina stared at the masked man who saved her. She felt that he looked familiar, but her brain was very slow at this time. She couldn't figure out who he was based on his skin, hair, body, and other characteristics. At that moment, the leading black youth finally let out a sigh of relief. He covered his throat, which was still in pain, and threatened in a strange voice, "If you dare to provoke us, the Black Dynasty, you will die a horrible death. I swear, I will put your head next to my bed and use it as a urinal." Charlotte kicked his face, and the latter shut his mouth completely. "You?" Anina looked at Xiaolei. At this time, although the fear had disappeared from her mind was still a mess, and she couldn't function normally. "Get out of here," Charlotte said, then turned and ran toward the exit of the alley. At that moment, he did not want Anina to see his face. It was already a mistake for him to help. If he showed his face to Anina, it would be even worse. Anina stared at Xiaolei's back as he disappeared in the blink of an eye. After a while, she said, "That's strange. He looks so familiar." Charlotte ran all the way, and as he ran, he took off the shirt that covered his face and put it on. 2 minutes later, he returned to the bar and quickly walked into the bathroom inside the bar. In the bathroom, he washed his hands and face and tidied up his shirt. Then, he walked out of the bathroom. At that moment, Anina walked in from the back door. She looked around and quickly found Charlotte. Charlotte walked over to her and pretended to be surprised. "Miss Anina, what happened? Why are you so dirty?" "You," Anina said tentatively. "Don't you know what happened?" Charlotte said, "My stomach is a little uncomfortable. I was in the bathroom just now. Tell me what happened." A look of disappointment flashed in Anina's eyes. She said, "Let's get out of here. I'll tell you on the way." "Well, okay, let's go." Charlotte followed her out of the bar. Stepping on the breakout motorcycle, Charlotte reached out and put his arm around Anina's waist. Anina's nostrils twitched slightly. She suddenly smelled a sour stench. She suddenly remembered something, and a smile quietly appeared on the corner of her mouth. The breakout motorcycle roared into the driveway, and its speed was like the wind passing through the tips of her hair. Chapter 122. Pushing the door open, Charlotte saw Long Bing sitting in the living room, watching TV. "Why are you so late?" Long Bing looked at Charlotte. Charlotte said, "My colleague invited me for a drink, and then something happened." He told her about how Anina had provoked the gang members. When she heard Charlotte say that he had helped Anina, Long Bing frowned and scolded, "How could you be so rash?" Charlotte said awkwardly, "I know that doing so may attract attention, but if I didn't help her in that situation, she would have been insulted by the group of black people and even sold to a black market brothel. Her life would have been ruined. I really couldn't stand by and watch such a thing happen. I knew it was because of this reason. You're still too kind. Compared to what we were going to do, what is a German woman?" Charlotte nodded. "I know. It won't happen again. Did she send you back?" "No. She wanted to send me back, but I said it was too far. I asked her to send me to the subway station, and I took the subway back." "You did the right thing. After a pause, Long Bing asked again, "Are you sure you didn't let those black people see your face?" Charlotte said, "I'm sure I didn't. I acted very quickly. It took less than 2 minutes from the start to the end. Then I ran and took a detour back to the bar. I went to the bathroom, and when Anina returned to the bar, she didn't see that I had helped her." "You did a good job. By the way, did you get anything today?" Charlotte smiled. "How could it be so fast? Crew arranged for me to be Anina's assistant. In order to gain her trust, I also repaired her motorcycle. There is a very advanced precision machine in her shed. I used it a few times and learned some things, but it was far from enough." Long Bing thought for a moment. "Find a chance to dismantle it." "Dismantle it?" Charlotte looked a little surprised. Long Bing asked, "How can you study its structure if you don't dismantle it?" Xiaolei was taken aback for a moment, then he nodded. In fact, with the X-ray ability of his left eye, he didn't even need to dismantle the machine to see the structure inside. "All right, let's go to bed." Long Bing turned off the TV. Her voice was soft, and she looked a little lazy and sleepy. She looked like a newlywed wife who was tired from watching a kimchi drama and was pestering her husband to go to bed. Charlotte nodded subconsciously. "Yeah." Long Bing walked to Charlotte's side. She sniffed and frowned. "What's that smell on you?" It's the smell of garbage. I was hiding behind the trash can." Charlotte explained awkwardly. "Go wash up. I don't want to smell your scent all night." Long Bing said. This sentence was full of imagination, but what Charlotte thought of was her scissors gesture. Although they were in the same bed, he didn't even dare to touch her. Sharing the same bed seemed like a beautiful painting, but he was a normal man full of vigor. Every night, he slept with a young and sexy woman, but could not do anything. Could this be a happy and enjoyable thing? Go. Long Bing gently pushed Charlotte. Charlotte obediently walked to the bathroom. As he walked, he thought, "If this continues, my body will definitely have problems." After taking a shower, Charlotte didn't go back to the bedroom to sleep. He used the laptop that Long Bing gave him to look up the knowledge of CNC machine tools on the German website to further understand the knowledge in this area. He thought he could find the relevant software program, but in the end, he found nothing. Then, he bit the bullet and began to learn about integrated circuits. After integrated circuits, there was also programming knowledge. Even if he had a photographic memory, it was a very difficult thing to master these two aspects of knowledge. He studied for 2 hours. In these 2 hours, even Charlotte himself couldn't remember how much he had memorized about integrated circuits. In short, when he closed his eyes, all he could see were transistors, resistors, and capacitors. "I'll digest this knowledge tomorrow." Charlotte stretched, closed the laptop, and returned to the bedroom. Long Bing seemed to have fallen asleep. Her eyes were closed, and her breathing was even and long. Maybe it was because the weather was too hot, but she didn't cover herself with a quilt. The curves under the nightgown were curvy, hazy, and had a different kind of seductive taste. Charlotte quietly went to the bed and laid there motionlessly. At this moment, Long Bing suddenly turned over, lifted one of her long legs, and pressed it on his thigh. The nightgown on her body was lifted up, exposing her snow-white and delicate thigh, and there was also a purple lace. Her legs were beautiful, and the lace was also beautiful, coupled with her unique, light fragrance. Everything about her was so seductive. Charlotte wanted to lift her thigh and put it down. But just when he reached out, he suddenly saw that under the lace, there was a gun holster under the half-covered nightgown, and there was a black pistol in the holster. He put his hand down again. That's right. If I lift her leg, my hand will definitely hug her thigh. What if she suddenly thinks that I want to do it with her? What if the pistol accidentally goes off? So be it. Charlotte tried hard to get used to the feeling of being pressed by a woman to sleep. He was very adaptable, and after a few minutes, he got used to the strange feeling. But just when he was getting used to it, Long Bing's thigh moved up a little again, and her knees suddenly touched his sensitive area. Charlotte's body suddenly stiffened, and his nerves also tightened. Long Bing, on the other hand, was still sleeping soundly. She didn't seem to have any intention of moving her legs away from him. Charlotte's eyebrows silently knitted into a Chuan character, and he also lamented in his heart, "My life is really bitter, This is torturing me into an illness. That night, Charlotte did not know how he fell asleep, nor did he know when Longbing woke up. The only thing he knew was that after waking up, he felt that a certain part of his body was very uncomfortable. That feeling was like a boxer warming up on the sidelines for a long time, and when it was time to fight in the ring, he was told that the opponent had given up and the match was canceled. The next morning, Charlotte came to the factory. Compared to yesterday's work time, this time he came to work 30 minutes earlier. When he walked through the workshop, there were even no workers in the workshop, and the whole workshop was quiet. Charlotte's gaze moved to a large CNC machine tool, which was a comprehensive CNC high-precision machine tool that could do several kinds of work. He was immediately attracted by it, and his footsteps also walked to the machine tool. However, he quickly found a surveillance camera installed on the workshop wall, and he then gave up the idea. The reason why he entered the factory half an hour earlier was to study the advanced machine tool in the workshop when there was no one else. However, although there were no other workers in the workshop, it was a convenient and good opportunity to steal secrets. But if he was caught by the surveillance camera, and then he was targeted, it would be a good thing turned into a bad thing. Charlotte's footsteps did not stop, but his pace was a lot slower. His gaze was also fixed on the machine tool, and, at the same time, he used both telescopic and X-ray abilities to observe the internal structure of the machine tool from a distance. This was certainly very inconvenient, and it also consumed a lot of body energy, but this was the safest way. When he walked past the parallel line with the machine tool, Charlotte looked away. If he had already walked past the parallel line, and he still had to look back, it would be very easy to attract attention. Under the influence of Longbing during this period of time, Charlotte also paid attention to these small details. After passing through the workshop and arriving at the maintenance shed, Anina was still not there. There were no surveillance cameras installed in the shed. Charlotte walked directly in front of the machine tool, and its integrated circuit board was seen through, and he used his left eye to remember everything he saw. Half an hour quickly passed, and when there were still 5 minutes before the start of work, Anina came to the shed. Wearing a tight black t-shirt and denim shorts, her height, long legs, and voluptuous breasts, her sexiness could be seen at a glance. Lucas morning. Anina warmly greeted Charlotte. Charlotte also smiled and greeted her. Miss Anina, good morning. You don't have to be so polite, just call me Anina, Anina said. You see, I didn't even call you mister. I want to be friends with you, and friends don't need to be so polite. She was a lively woman, and if she had any thoughts in her heart, she would directly say it without hiding it. Charlotte had a smile on his face. Okay, it's my honor to be able to make a friend like you. I'll change my clothes and start working. Anina opened her wardrobe and took off her tight t-shirt and denim shorts in front of Xiaolei. She only had a black bikini on. Xiaolei didn't bother to hide anything from her, so she took off her tight t-shirt and jean shorts. Although she was wearing clothes, Charlotte still looked away awkwardly. Anina was very natural the whole time. After changing into her work clothes, she continued to repair the tank engine with Charlotte. Charlotte helped her, and while he was working, his mind was thinking about the knowledge about integrated circuits that he had memorized last night. Thinking of some knowledge, he recalled the integrated circuit board of the machine tool that he had just seen through, and compared them one by one, using the actual reference to help him understand and absorb the content that he had memorized. This kind of learning method was undoubtedly a shortcut, and only someone like him could do it. Lucas, do you remember the person that I told you about who helped me? Anina suddenly broke the silence between the two. Only then did Charlotte's mind return from studying. He said casually, I remember. You said that he was very powerful. Anina stared straight at Charlotte, and her eyes were very strange. He is a person who knows Kung Fu. I think he is most likely Chinese. What do you think? Charlotte said. Kung Fu isn't only practiced in China, right? Japanese Judo, Kendo, and Korean Taekwondo are all considered Kung Fu, and sometimes it's very difficult to distinguish them. The person who helped you could be Japanese or Korean and not necessarily Chinese. That, Anina tentatively said. Lucas, could it be you? Charlotte secretly cursed in his heart and pretended to be very surprised. Me? Haha, if I was as powerful as that person, I would definitely save you. But I was in the bathroom at that time, and I didn't know what happened at all. In fact, I still feel very guilty now. Something happened to you, and I couldn't help you." The corner of Anina's mouth slightly curled up. She didn't seem to be satisfied with the answer given by Charlotte. Charlotte avoided her gaze, and he secretly knew in his heart, she is testing me. Could it be that I revealed something, and she found out? At this time, a young man walked into the shed. "Anina, today is my birthday. My family will be holding a barbecue party at 7 p.m. Come and join us." Anina looked up at the young man. "Joseph, happy birthday. I will be there on time." The young man called Joseph sized up Charlotte, but he didn't extend an invitation. He turned around and left the shed. After Joseph left, Anina said, "He is the electrical engineer of our factory. He is very powerful, but he is not very polite. He should have invited you just now." "It's okay. We don't know each other. It's normal for him not to invite me." Although Charlotte said this, he secretly thought in his heart, he is an electrical engineer, so he must have a lot of electrical engineering blueprints in his hands. It would be great if I could see those blueprints. Joseph. Charlotte remembered this name. Chapter 123. Another day's work was over. Although it had only been 2 days, Anina was very satisfied with Charlotte as an assistant. In her eyes, Charlotte was an outstanding mechanic. What made her even more satisfied was that he was diligent and polite. Working with Charlotte was really a pleasure. Moreover, she actually knew that Charlotte was the one who helped her. Although she didn't know why Charlotte didn't admit that he did it, she was grateful to him. "Lucas, I'll send you to the subway station later," Anina said to Charlotte before going to the public bathroom. Charlotte said, "Aren't you going to Joseph's birthday party? Don't worry about me. I'll call a taxi to the subway station myself." Anina said, "My house is 100 meters away from Joseph's house. I'm not in a hurry." "That's settled then. Wait for me after your shower. I'll send you." Charlotte smiled at her. "All right, thank you." Anina also smiled at Charlotte. It was a very sincere feeling. The two of them walked to the public bathroom together. Many people went to the public bathroom to take a shower. Since mechanics mostly did physical work, they would be sweaty after a day's work, coupled with oil stains and whatnot. Many people would take a shower before going home. Not many people were willing to sit in their car or stand on the subway while sweating profusely. When they were about to reach the public bathroom, Charlotte saw Joseph. He was walking and chatting with a colleague, and he looked very engrossed. Charlotte's heart skipped a beat. What are they talking about? With this thought in mind, Charlotte's left eye locked onto Joseph's lips. He wanted to read Joseph's words with his lips, but he suddenly realized that the lip reading that worked in China was useless in Germany. The lip reading that he was familiar with did not match the German pronunciation at all. However, he still read a few German words by imitating the pronunciation: super, large, intelligent, machine, certain, success. It was just a few words, so Charlotte couldn't guess more. He was a little depressed and thought to himself, "My lip-reading skills have always worked in China, but that's because I'm familiar with my mother tongue. If I want my lip-reading skills to be more effective, I'll have to study and familiarize myself with the German pronunciation and lip-reading skills." There were too many things to learn. Charlotte felt that he didn't have enough time. "Joseph," Anina quickly walked up to him. When Joseph saw Anina, his face broke into a smile. "Anina, you must come tonight." "Of course I'm coming." Anina walked up to Joseph, pulled him aside, and whispered into his ear. Charlotte glanced at it and entered the bathroom. More than 10 minutes later, Charlotte changed into casual clothes and left the public bathroom. At this time, Anina also walked out of the bathroom. Her hair was wet, and it was easy to see that she had washed in a hurry. "I can actually wait for you. Why are you in such a hurry?" Charlotte said with a smile, feeling a little grateful in his heart. He knew very well that if she didn't have to send him to the subway station, a woman couldn't have bathed so quickly. Anina grinned. "Come on, let's go get the car." A few minutes later, Anina's Challenger motorcycle drove out of the factory and drove along a road in the direction of the city. As usual, Charlotte sat in the back seat, holding her small waist tightly. Her plump buttocks were also pressed between his thighs, making him particularly sensitive. Anina quickly rode to a T-junction. Straight ahead was the city, and to the left was a small town. There was a road sign next to the T-junction, which said in German, Warden's Town, 5 kilometers. Charlotte had actually seen this road sign 4 times, but he had no impression of what Warden's Town looked like because he had never been there. But when Charlotte was looking at the road sign, Anina suddenly changed the direction of the motorcycle and entered the road to Warden's Town. Aren't we going to the subway station? Charlotte was surprised. Where are you taking me? Anina said, to my house. To your house? Charlotte was stunned for a moment. Anina said, I talked to Joseph, and he invited you to his birthday party. You go to my house first, and then we will go to Joseph's house together to attend his birthday party. Charlotte, you won't blame me, right? I didn't discuss with you before I took you away, haha. Anina said with a smile. Charlotte smiled and said, why would I? I also want to meet a few new friends. Joseph was a very powerful electrical engineer, and Charlotte wanted to get to know such a person. He was eager to have such an opportunity, so how could he not be happy? The journey of a few kilometers passed very quickly, and an old town came into view. The town was located in a U-shaped valley, surrounded by several mountain peaks. The buildings were typical of the classical style, with Romanesque attics and Gothic churches. Those buildings were mixed together, and there were very few modern elements. It gave people the feeling that they had come to medieval Europe, and if they were not careful, a group of Germanic knights might rush out from the maple forest next to the town. Surrounded by mountains, the ancient town, the clear water, the slow-flowing river, the burning maple leaves, and the lush green grassland. This place was breathtakingly beautiful. Such a beautiful scene shocked Charlotte, and then he sighed again. He thought to himself, in our country, this kind of environment is very rare. Anina suddenly drove the motorcycle into an old cobblestone path, and Charlotte, who was sitting in the back seat, was almost thrown off the bike. He quickly hugged Anina's small waist, and his body was stuck to her back. He sat firmly, but the test had just begun. The motorcycle bumped along the way, and Charlotte's body was also shaking nonstop. Because of his sitting posture, he was in contact with Anina's, but Charlotte felt that he was like a drill in motion. Fortunately, the cobblestone path was not long, and the Challenger motorcycle stopped in front of a house built by the river. In front of the house was a winding river, and behind the house was a dense maple forest. There were no neighbors on the left or right, and it was quiet and beautiful. This was the most attractive living environment that Charlotte had ever seen. This is my home. Anina took off her sunglasses. Charlotte quickly jumped off the bike. Do you live alone? Yes, my parents live in another place. Anina made an inviting gesture. Please come in. Charlotte followed her into the house. There was a sofa and a fireplace in the living room, and on the wall above the fireplace hung an antler and a shotgun. Charlotte asked curiously, do you like to hunt? Anina said, no, that's my dad's shotgun. I don't like to hunt animals. Sit down. I'll make you a cup of coffee. Charlotte said, no need. Aren't we going to Joseph's house? Anina said with a smile, it's not 6 yet. His birthday party is at 7, so we don't have to go there so early. Sit down. I'll make you a cup of coffee. Well, you can also look around. Don't be shy. Charlotte didn't refuse, and he nodded. Anina went to the kitchen to make coffee for Charlotte. Charlotte took out his phone and sent a text message to Longbing. I'm going to a colleague's birthday party. I'll be back later. Soon, he received a reply from Longbing. Yes. Just one word. Charlotte smiled bitterly, put away his phone, and began to look around Anina's house. There weren't many high-end things in Anina's house, but the design and decorations were very exquisite, giving people a very comfortable feeling. In the study room on the second floor, Charlotte saw a lot of highly professional books, mainly on mechanical manufacturing and electrical engineering. He casually flipped through a professional book on electrical engineering, and he found that the knowledge in the book was more advanced and comprehensive than the knowledge he found on the internet. I'll borrow a few books from her later, Charlotte thought to himself. Anina walked in with a cup of steaming black coffee. So you're in the study room. Do you like to read too? Charlotte said, yes, I like to read very much. You're reading books on electrical engineering. Do you also like knowledge in this area? Anina put the coffee on the desk. Charlotte said, "Yes, I'm self-studying in this area." Then he smiled. "To be honest, I also want to be like you, to get a senior title. That way, I can earn a little more." Anina said, "I'm not very good at electrical engineering. If there's a chance, you should ask Joseph for advice. He's a genius in this area." "Oh, right, he's currently researching a very intelligent large machine tool, and it's almost completed. If everything goes well, he'll succeed." A very intelligent large machine tool? Charlotte was excited. He recalled the conversation between Joseph and his colleagues in the factory, which also included words like intelligent and large machine tool. "Yes, I heard him say that it should be the world's most advanced intelligent machine tool. It can save a lot of labor and production time. More importantly, it will be more accurate than the existing machine tools," Anina said. In terms of accuracy, even if it's 1,000th of a millimeter, it's still very impressive." Charlotte picked up the cup of black coffee and stirred it with a spoon. He thought to himself, "I must get his design. If Lima Manufacturing Company has such a high-intelligence machine tool, then my Lima Manufacturing Company will become the strongest manufacturing company in the country." "Do you like this place?" Anina smiled and looked at Charlotte. "I like it. I really like it." Charlotte smiled and said, "I was just thinking that it would be great if I had a house like this." Anina said, "If you like it, you can come and stay at my house. Are you still renting? If you come and stay here, I'll only charge you a little bit of rent. What do you think?" "This." Charlotte thought for a moment. "Thank you, but my rent hasn't expired yet. We'll talk about it when it's due. Why don't you stay here tonight? I want to drink some wine, and no one will send you home," Anina said. Charlotte thought for a moment. "Okay, then I'll bother you tonight." "Hee hee. Are you Chinese always so polite?" Anina laughed. "Most Chinese are very polite. We're a country of etiquette, and we pay a lot of attention to etiquette," Charlotte said. The two of them chatted. Charlotte had long forgotten Long Bing's reminder that he couldn't speak German too fluently. However, after these 2 days of interaction, Charlotte didn't think that Anina would bring him any trouble. She was just an advanced mechanic, just an ordinary woman. After drinking coffee, around 6:30, Anina left her house with Charlotte and walked along a small path to Joseph's house. Chapter 124. Joseph's house was bigger. In front of the house was a green grass field, and behind the house was a metal warehouse. When he saw the metal warehouse, Xiaolei's heart skipped a beat. He thought to himself, "Joseph is researching his own intelligent machine tool, and it's a large one. He definitely can't do it in the house he lives in. It's most likely in that warehouse, right?" Just as Charlotte was about to use his X-ray vision to look at the warehouse, Joseph walked over. "Anina, can you help me? There are too many guests, and I'm a bit busy." Anina said, "Okay, what do you want me to do?" Joseph said, "Help me get some wine. You know where my wine cellar is?" Anina nodded. "Okay." Then she said to Charlotte, "Wait for me." After Anina left, Joseph's gaze fell on Charlotte. "You're Lucas, right?" There was no respect in his tone. Xiaolei could tell that Joseph didn't want to invite him to his birthday party. The only reason he was here was because of Anina. In fact, if it wasn't for Joseph's identity and what Joseph was researching, Charlotte wouldn't be interested in coming here. All of these were reasons that were hidden under the table. Although he wasn't being respected, Charlotte still smiled and said politely, "Yes, hello, Mr. Joseph." Then he extended his hand and wanted to shake Joseph's hand. "My hand is greasy, so I don't want to shake hands," Joseph said. Then, "Lucas, can you help me get some charcoal from the storeroom? I need charcoal for barbecuing." "No problem. Where's the storeroom?" Charlotte asked. Joseph raised his hand and pointed to the storeroom for Charlotte. Charlotte walked to the storeroom. Joseph didn't treat him as a guest at all. Instead, he treated him as an unwelcome guest. Joseph giving him the cold shoulder and making him do undignified work was nothing. Compared to the secrets he wanted to steal, it was not even a feather's weight. Some guests who were chatting in the front yard looked at Charlotte's back and chatted. "That China young man is Anina's new assistant. I heard that Anina and the assistant get along well," a guest said. I heard that the China guy fixed Anina's motorcycle in an hour, and he fixed the engine's problem. That's amazing, a guest said. Do you know why Anina is willing to accept this new assistant? A young woman with blonde hair and blue eyes said with a smile. Anina talked to me before. She said that this Chinese assistant knows kung fu and is very powerful. Last night, she got into trouble with a gangster, and she said that it was this Chinese assistant who helped her solve the problem. In that case, this Chinese kid is actually a very capable person, but it seems like he doesn't like him. He actually asked him to get the charcoal. A middle-aged man laughed and said, "It's an open secret that Joseph likes Anina. This Chinese guy looks good, and he's working with Anina. Of course, Joseph wouldn't like him. That's an open secret that Joseph likes Anina. This China guy looks good, and he works with Anina. Of course, Joseph doesn't like him. That guy is really stupid, coming here. Isn't he asking for trouble?" Xiaolei did not hear these discussions. He went to the storeroom. Charlotte didn't hear these discussions. He went to the storeroom. There were farm tools, machine parts, and the charcoal that Xiaolei wanted to take away. It was a very big bag, about 25 kilograms in weight. Inside the storeroom were some miscellaneous things. There were farming tools, machine parts, and the charcoal that Charlotte wanted to take. It was a big bag, about 25 kilograms. After entering the storeroom, Charlotte didn't rush to take the big bag of charcoal. Instead, he stood in front of the window and looked at the metal warehouse built behind the house. However, this did not block Xiaolei's left eye's vision. His left eye twitched slightly, and the wall that was more than 10 meters away disappeared from his sight. But this couldn't stop Charlotte's left eye. His left eye twitched slightly, and the wall that was about 10 meters away disappeared from his sight. He used his eyesight to see through the fluorescent tarpaulin, but he found that the tarpaulin had absorbed his energy. When he tried to see through the tarpaulin, he could only see blurry things. Xiaolei was secretly surprised. The fluorescent tarpaulin can actually absorb my energy and weaken my X-ray vision. I can't see clearly. How can this be? Ever since he got the X-ray vision ability, Charlotte had never failed before. But this time he failed. Everything in the world had its nemesis. That was the law of nature. China's theory of the 5 elements reinforcing and restraining each other was also based on this principle. In other words, nothing without a nemesis existed. Charlotte's X-ray vision was the same. Charlotte didn't continue trying. He retracted his eyesight and walked out of the storeroom with the big bag of charcoal. Although he didn't see clearly what was inside the tarpaulin, he was sure that it was the AI machine that Joseph was researching. Now that he knew this place, he had plenty of opportunities. He wasn't in a hurry. Charlotte placed the charcoal next to the barbecue grill. At this time, Anina walked out with a box of red wine. Joseph was also there. He was even more exaggeratedly carrying an oak barrel. That was also the container for the wine. Seeing Charlotte put the charcoal in the grill, Anina frowned slightly. She put down the box of red wine and walked to Charlotte's side. She said in a low voice, "Lucas, if you don't like it, we can leave here. I can make you dinner." Charlotte smiled. "It's nothing. I'm quite happy." "All right, as long as you're happy." Anina glanced at Joseph as she spoke. Her brows were still furrowed. Joseph pulled the stopper of the red wine and oak barrels. The oak barrels were filled with dark beer. From afar, one could smell the unique aroma of German dark beer. The guests began to drink and grill, and the birthday party was about to begin. Out of everyone present, Charlotte was only familiar with Anina. He didn't know anyone else, including Joseph. Thus, he became the loneliest person in the lively scene. However, he didn't idle around. Since there was no one to chat with, he watched others chat. He familiarized himself with the German lip reading and pronunciation, and perfected his lip reading technique. Not long after, a few young men arrived on motorcycles. They were about the same age as Joseph and were all wearing cool motorcycle outfits. Joseph warmly hugged and exchanged greetings with them. It seemed that he had a good relationship with them. At this time, Anina finally got rid of one of her girlfriends. She walked to Charlotte's side. "Lucas, let's have a drink. To our friendship." Charlotte clinked his glass with hers. "To our friendship." He then drank the beer in his glass. Those who just arrived are Joseph's buddies. They were classmates in university. One is a policeman, one is a professional boxer, and the other two work for BMW. Anina drank a lot and was a little talkative. I know them. They're not good-tempered guys. Charlotte just smiled faintly. He wasn't interested in getting to know Joseph's friends. Once he got what he wanted, he would immediately leave Germany. The people and things here didn't mean much to him. But this time, Joseph put down the glass in his hand. He walked to the center of the barbecue area and said loudly, "Today is my 27th birthday. I would like to thank everyone for coming. You're my colleagues, classmates, and neighbors. At the same time, you're all my friends. You are the most precious people in my life." The guests all applauded, and Xiaolei also clapped a few times out of courtesy. After the opening speech, Joseph shifted his gaze to the corner where Charlotte and Anina were. He smiled and said, "Now, I would like to invite a new friend to come up and say a few words. This new friend is Lucas from China." He waved to Charlotte. "Lucas, please come here." Charlotte was slightly stunned. He didn't know what Joseph wanted to do, but he had a bad feeling. Looks like our new friend is a shy person. He's shy. Let's give him a round of applause to welcome him. Okay? Joseph took the lead in applauding. The guests also applauded, and even Anina joined in the applause. Charlotte bit the bullet and walked to Joseph's side. He said awkwardly, "Mr. Joseph, happy birthday." "Thank you." Joseph smiled. "Lucas, I heard that you know Kung Fu. China's Kung Fu is world famous. It's very powerful, right?" Charlotte subconsciously looked at Anina. If anyone knew that he knew Kung Fu, it would be Anina. It seemed that Anina had already guessed that he was the one who helped her last night. Then, she most likely told this to one of her best friends, and that best friend happened to be a blabbermouth, so more people knew about it. Although Anina didn't mean any harm, she brought him trouble. "Actually," Charlotte said, "I don't know any Kung Fu, but China's Kung Fu is indeed very powerful." "You're bragging, right?" A young man in a motorcycle suit also walked to the center of the venue. He said in a disdainful tone, "The China I know only produces low-quality, cheap goods, such as socks and shirts. As for Kung Fu, that's just a story. I guess you can only see it in movies." A few young men in biker suits laughed out loud. Charlotte's face suddenly turned ugly. He had a bad feeling just now. Sure enough, this Joseph was trying to embarrass him on purpose. "Hans, you can't say that. Lucas is my colleague and also my friend," Joseph said in a hypocritical tone. The young man called Hans laughed in disdain. "I hate people who lie the most. China doesn't have Kung Fu, only low-quality goods. If he's not convinced, let him fight with me. I'll let him experience our German boxing." Joseph looked at Charlotte. "Lucas, do you dare to fight with Hans?" Charlotte said, "There's no need for that." "Oomph." Hans sneered. "Besides producing low-quality goods, China also produces cowards." Xiaolei was instantly enraged. "Do you really want to fight?" Chapter 125. Hans said sarcastically, "What? Do you want to show me China's Kung Fu? Let me tell you, I'm a professional boxer. Once you decide to fight me, I won't go easy on you." Charlotte said, "I don't need you to go easy on me. If I can't beat you in 1 minute, I lose. If I win in 1 minute, you apologize for what you said just now." "Ha ha ha." Hans laughed exaggeratedly. "You're really an arrogant guy. Do you know who you're talking to? You're talking to a featherweight national champion. Beat me in 1 minute? I'd like to see how you're going to beat me in 1 minute." Joseph took the opportunity to say, "I think this will be an exciting fight. Do you need boxing gloves and a referee? I could go get your fists and be your referee." Charlotte said calmly, "No need, it's just a minute. Why do you need boxing gloves and a referee?" "All right, you can start when you're ready." Joseph's lips curled into a gloating smile. "Come on, Lucas." Anina was very excited. She was actually the one who wanted to see Charlotte show his Kung Fu the most. As long as Charlotte showed his Kung Fu, he would definitely be the one who covered his face and helped her. He would be her hero. The onlookers retreated a little, looking forward to the fight. Hans took off his motorcycle suit and the vest he was wearing inside. The muscles on his body were very developed, like pieces of discus. There were many tattoos on his chest and arms, such as the Grim Reaper holding a scythe, skulls, and so on. They look very fierce. A few young blondes whistled at Hans. The strong Hans had obviously caused them to have an excess of hormones. The women's whistles made Hans very proud. He shook his neck, which suddenly made a crisp sound. He clenched his fists, which also made the crisp sound of bones moving. Then he waved his fists, which were as fast as the wind. This didn't seem to be a warm-up before a duel, but a personal show. Charlotte was not as serious as Hans. He did not take off his shirt. Instead, he adjusted his tie. Hans was like a ferocious beast, his entire body filled with aggressiveness. Charlotte, on the other hand, was like a white-collar worker, gentle and elegant, without the slightest bit of threat. From the looks of it, apart from Anina, almost no one thought that Charlotte would be able to last a minute against Hans. I bet that China kid can only hold on for 30 seconds at most. In 30 seconds, he will be knocked down by Hans, a guest said. This China kid doesn't seem to want to hear anyone say bad things about China. But is it worth it to be beaten up just for a little pride? Someone said. A mechanic assistant actually dares to challenge the German featherweight champion. I really don't know if he's overestimating himself or praising his courage. A guest joked. She said, Lucas isn't as weak as you say. He won't lose. Also, Hans' words were very rude. If I were Lucas, I would be very angry too. In fact, this was indeed the reason why Charlotte was willing to fight Hans. He could tolerate insulting him and avoid unnecessary trouble. But he couldn't tolerate insulting all the Chinese people. Even Joseph knew that he knew Kung Fu anyway. So, it wouldn't be a big deal to have a duel and teach an arrogant guy like Hans a lesson. Anina, you said that Lucas can win. I think Hans will win. Do you dare to bet 1,000 euros with me? A guest said. Anina hesitated. 1,000 euros was not a small amount of money. She definitely won't dare. If she agrees, wouldn't she be giving you 1,000 euros for free? Someone said. Anina glanced at Charlotte and suddenly said, I'll bet with you. Anina, this is a voluntary bet. I'll give you 1,000 euros. If Lucas loses, you have to give me 2,000 euros. The person who bet with Anina also took out his wallet and gave Anina 1,000 euros, as if he was afraid that Anina would go back on her words. When Anina took the 1,000 euros, Hans suddenly exerted force and punched at Charlotte's nose. Hans was not going to be courteous with Xiaolei. Xiaolei's feet tapped the ground, and his body took a step back, easily evading Hans' attack. You do have some strength. After saying that, the corners of Hans' mouth curled into a contemptuous smile. Charlotte didn't wait for him to say anything. He suddenly took a step forward and punched at Hans' heart. Hans wanted to break his nose with a punch, so there was no need for him to be polite. Hans withdrew his arms and used the outside of his elbows to protect his heart. This was the most common defensive move in boxing. Bam! Xiaolei's right fist viciously struck Hans' elbow. With a dull thud, Hans was forced to take 2 steps back. His elbow, which was originally standing upright, also drooped down. Not because of anything else, but because of the pain. Charlotte's fist was like a rock, and he almost cried out in pain. Charlotte's fist was imbued with the internal force of Wing Chun. So how could a boxer like Hans defend against it with just his elbow? Just as Hans was in a state of panic, Xiaolei closed in once again. His fists were as fast as the wind. Long bridge punch, short bridge elbow. His attacks were like a flock of birds, causing Hans to retreat continuously. Bam, bam, bam. Hans barely managed to block a few attacks, but Charlotte quickly broke through his defense, and Charlotte punched him in the chest. In that instant, it was as if a hammer had struck his heart. He cried out in pain and fell to the ground. The featherweight champion was KO'd. From the moment Hans threw the punch to the moment Hans couldn't get up, it took less than 40 seconds. Charlotte said he wouldn't need a minute to defeat Hans, and he did it. The whole audience was astonished, and the sound of people gasping could be heard. The person who was the most shocked was Joseph. He stared at Xiaolei, who was standing in the middle of the field. He was shocked and angry. He was the one who asked Hans to provoke Charlotte. His goal was to embarrass Charlotte in public, but he didn't expect that Hans, the German featherweight champion, would be the one being embarrassed. Huh, I won. Anina was undoubtedly the happiest person. Not only did she win €1,000, but she also found her hero. In fact, before Hans was defeated, she was sure that the person who saved her last night was Charlotte, because Charlotte and the masked man had the same movements. The person who lost the money had a look of bad luck on his face, and he mumbled, "You must have known, or you wouldn't have accepted my bet." Anina smiled and said, "Whatever you say, your €1,000 is mine. I won't return it to you." In the ring, Charlotte walked to Hans' side, and he extended a hand to Hans. Hans finally caught his breath. Looking at Charlotte's hand, he hesitated for a moment, but in the end he grabbed Charlotte's hand and got up from the ground. However, he didn't give Charlotte a good look, and he didn't fulfill his promise to apologize to Charlotte. His face was gloomy, and he was ready to take off his motorcycle jacket and vest. When Hans recalled how the blondes had whistled at him for showing off his muscles, he could not help but blush in embarrassment. "Hey," Charlotte said, "you still owe me an apology." Hans suddenly stopped, and he looked back at Charlotte, his eyes full of resentment. Joseph stood up. "Lucas, you've already won the game. Why do you have to do this?" Charlotte said indifferently, "Fine, if a person doesn't even have the grace to apologize, I don't care." The onlookers immediately started discussing. Hans sneered, "I'm sorry. This kind of apology didn't have any sincerity. Instead, it was full of resentment and hatred." However, Charlotte didn't care about his sincerity. He only wanted the result. He said, "I accept your apology. It's fine now." There was a round of applause around. "Let's drink. It's my birthday today." Joseph wanted to divert the guests' attention. Anina walked to Charlotte with 2 glasses of red wine, and her face was full of excitement. "Lucas, let's have a drink for your victory." Charlotte took the glass from her and said with a smile, "You've drunk a lot. Don't drink any more after this one." "No, I'm very happy today. I know a secret that makes me happy, haha." Anina giggled, with her cheeks and ears blushing. She was indeed drunk. While everyone was drinking and talking about the game, Hans walked to a corner, took out his phone, and made a call. "Hello, Navis. I know who hurt you. He and that woman are with me. Well, I'm in Warden Town." After the call, Hans looked at Charlotte, who was chatting with Anina, and a cruel smile appeared on his face. "You're dead, China boy." Joseph walked to Anina. "Anina, today is my birthday. Let's have a drink." "Okay." Anina clinked her glass with Joseph, and then drank more than half of the red wine. Then, she was a little shaky. Joseph also said, "You've drunk too much. Let me help you to rest." "It's okay," Anina said with a smile. "I still want to drink with Lucas." Joseph took Anina's arm and walked into the room, regardless of whether Anina agreed or not, and he didn't care about the look in Charlotte's eyes. Charlotte finally saw it, and he thought to himself, Joseph obviously wants to take advantage of Anina when she's drunk. This guy is extremely smart, but he's not a good person. Just as he was pondering over Joseph's motive, Joseph had already helped Anina into the room. Anina was mumbling something, but even she didn't know what she was saying. Charlotte hesitated for a moment and then followed them. "Hey!" A young man in a motorcycle suit blocked Charlotte's way. "Friend from China, let's have a drink." The other 2 youths in biker suits also came over, each holding a bottle of wine in their hands. "Want to get me drunk?" Looks like they've already discussed it with Joseph. They're going to create an opportunity for Joseph to sleep with Anina today, and my competition with Hans is just an interlude. Charlotte knew very well what was going on. The young man in the motorcycle suit handed a glass of wine to Charlotte. Charlotte took the glass of wine, but he didn't drink it. He said, "Sorry, I need to go to the washroom. Let's drink later." After saying that, he walked around the young man in the motorcycle suit and entered the room. The 3 young men in motorcycle suits looked at each other. Their goal was to get Charlotte drunk, but they couldn't possibly chase him to the washroom to give him a toast, right? When it came to violence, who was better than Hans? Chapter 126. There was a living room. 2 guests were sitting on the sofa, chatting. On the left was a wooden staircase, and on the right was a corridor and a few rooms. After being harassed by the three bikers, Charlotte couldn't see Joseph and Anina anymore. Charlotte's left eye twitched. The rooms on the right entered his vision, but Joseph and Anina weren't in any of them. Charlotte followed them to the second floor. He soon found Joseph and Anina in one of the rooms. It was Joseph's bedroom, and Joseph had just put Anina on the bed. Joseph touched Anina's cheek, his eyes full of tenderness. "Anina, I've liked you since we were young. Don't you know my feelings for you?" Don't touch me." Anina stuttered. Joseph said, "Wait for me. I'll come and accompany you after I send the guests away. Tonight you're mine." Anina closed her eyes. She really had too much to drink. She was lying on someone's bed, and she didn't realize what the people beside her said. "You're so beautiful." Joseph kissed Anina's forehead, then turned and walked to the door. Charlotte left the door and quickly hid in the room next to the bedroom. It was a study, and it was also where Joseph worked. Just as he hid in the study, he heard the door open next door, and then Joseph's footsteps. He came down the stairs. Charlotte was worried that Joseph would do that to Anina immediately, but he didn't. Thinking about it, it was normal. There were a lot of guests outside, and no matter how impatient Joseph was, he wouldn't leave so many guests to do that, right? Anina was drunk, and she was lying on his bed. After sending the guest away, she could do whatever she wanted. This was probably his plan. He didn't need to do anything for Anina for the time being. So Charlotte looked around Joseph's study. There were 2 large bookshelves in the study, and there were more than 200 books inside. With a glance, he found that half of the books were related to electrical engineering and mechanical processing. Charlotte's gaze fell on Joseph's desk. There were some drawings and drafts on the desk. Charlotte's heart skipped a beat. He walked to the desk and flipped through the blueprints and drafts. The blueprints were related to electrical engineering, not the design of the intelligent machine tool. However, there were some calculations and diagrams related to intelligent machine tools on the draft. These electrical engineering drawings and drafts were of great value. Charlotte quickly scanned through all the electrical engineering drawings and drafts on the desk. In this situation, if it were Long Bing, all she could do was use her phone or a miniature camera to capture all the content, but he didn't need to. He only needed to use his left eye to look at it once, and all the content would be stored in his left eye like a photo. Once he recalled it, it would all appear in his brain. It took Charlotte 5 minutes to finish reading all the blueprints and drafts on the desk. Then, he once again used his ability to see through the entire study room, looking for the secrets hidden in the dark. However, he didn't find any hidden safes or document bags. A large intelligent machine tool would probably have dozens of blueprints. It's impossible that Joseph doesn't need a single blueprint, right? Where would he hide it? While thinking about this question, Charlotte's gaze moved to the direction of the window. The warehouse with the metal roof once again entered his line of sight. A trace of a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. If he wants to build that intelligent machine tool, he needs the blueprints. He wouldn't put the blueprints far away. That would be inconvenient. I have to enter his warehouse tonight. After making up his mind, Charlotte left the study room and entered Joseph's room. Anina laid on the bed and muttered drunkenly, "I know it's ye." Charlotte smiled bitterly and shook his head. He carried Anina and walked to the bathroom. Anina was originally very quiet, but after taking 2 steps, she became naughty. She hugged Charlotte's neck and suddenly kissed Charlotte's cheek. She murmured, "I want to do it with you. Do it for me." This sentence lacked a key word, but Charlotte was very clear about what she wanted to express. Western women were indeed open-minded. That kind of thing could also be expressed so directly. Charlotte ignored her and walked into the bathroom. Anina didn't stop her harassment. She kissed Charlotte's ear. One of the hands that was hugging his neck dropped and moved to his body. She was extremely naughty. "Be quiet. I'll help you sober up." Charlotte endured the harassment. He turned on the faucet in the sink. But just as she was waiting for the sink to be filled with water, Anina's hand suddenly grabbed something that shouldn't have been grabbed. At that moment, Charlotte felt as if he had stepped on a landmine. The blonde beauty in his arms was drunk and hazy. Her eyes were full of desire. Her sexy lips and her soft, boneless hands were all her weapons. She attacked him with all her might, making it difficult for him to resist. Fortunately, the sink was quickly filled with water. Charlotte couldn't wait to put Anina down. When she pestered him again, he suddenly pressed her neck and pressed her into the sink. Gulp! Anina choked on the water. Charlotte let go of his hand. Anina raised her head from the sink, but her mind was still a little fuzzy. Charlotte suddenly pressed his right hand on her heart. His index and middle fingers poked in her heart. After a little bit, he pulled up. Wah! Anina suddenly vomited. Most of what she vomited was the wine in her stomach and some barbecued meat. Once she vomited these things out, she relaxed and became much more clear-headed. Anina stared blankly at Charlotte, not knowing what had happened. Charlotte said, "This is Joseph's room. You're drunk. I just want you to sober up. I'll wait for you downstairs." With that, he turned and left. "Lucas!" Anina called out, but Charlotte didn't turn back. She retracted her gaze and looked at herself in the mirror. She was stunned for a long time before she said, I'm so ugly." Charlotte quickly went downstairs. When he walked out of the living room, Joseph was also walking in. The two met. Joseph's eyes were filled with suspicion. "Lucas, where did you go?" Charlotte said, "I went to the bathroom. German barbecue is too greasy. I'm not used to it. I'm sorry." Joseph said, "The birthday party is over. You can go now." Charlotte nodded. "Thank you for your hospitality." However, Joseph didn't talk to Charlotte anymore. He strode toward the staircase. Just as Charlotte was peeking at his blueprints and drafts and helping Anina sober up, he finished greeting the guests and announced the end of the party. Now, he couldn't wait to become one with Anina. He didn't want to talk nonsense with Charlotte. Charlotte walked to the front yard. The guests were indeed leaving. Those who lived nearby walked home, while those who lived further away drove home. The last to leave were Hans and the three bikers. Before Hans left, he looked straight at Xiaolei with a gloating smile on his face. After that, he and his three other companions rode away on their motorcycles. Charlotte walked forward slowly. He was a little anxious. There was a question in his heart. If Anina didn't come out, should he go back to Joseph's house and take her away? Charlotte smiled bitterly and thought to himself, "Boss sure asked me to be a consultant for 101 innings. Longbing also wants me to become an outstanding spy and secret agent. She spent a lot of effort to train me, but I can't become the person she and Boss sure want me to be. My personality is really not suitable to be a spy or secret agent. So troublesome." The most basic requirement for a qualified spy or secret agent was to achieve their goals by fair means or foul. Take the current situation as an example. A qualified spy and secret agent would definitely not help Anina out of trouble. On the contrary, this was a good opportunity to achieve his goal, because when Joseph was busy with Anina, it was the best opportunity for him to sneak into Joseph's warehouse and steal secrets. From the perspective of completing the mission, he was actually doing the wrong thing. However, from the perspective of friendship, Anina treated him as a friend and trusted him very much. She was also very friendly and took care of him. Faced with such friendship, how could he sit back and watch such a disgusting thing happen to her? If he didn't do anything, he would be a heartless person. Forget it. I'm not born to be a spy or secret agent. I just want to live with my conscience and live calmly. Charlotte comforted himself. Just then, Anina's voice came from behind. "Joseph, this is too sudden. Give me some time to think about it." Anina walked out of the door. After vomiting, she was already sober. Joseph chased after her with an indignant look on his face. "Anina, don't you understand how I feel about you?" Anina frowned. "It's getting late. I have to go back." Joseph saw Charlotte standing on the lawn. He suddenly said, "Does it have anything to do with him?" Anina was stunned for a moment. Then she shook her head. "Joseph, what do you want me to say to make you understand? This has nothing to do with Lucas. It's my own problem. We grew up together. I know you too well. I don't feel anything. Do you understand?" It was rare for a boy and a girl to grow up together to become lovers. The reason was really too familiar. Charlotte had a deep understanding of this, because he and Jiang Rui were an example. He was too familiar with her. He even saw the few moles on her, but when they were young, they would take a bath together naked. He could see it clearly. It was so familiar. If he didn't feel his heart palpitate, how could they become lovers? All right, go home. I'll wait for you. Joseph shrugged helplessly. Good night, Joseph. Anina said good night to Joseph and then walked toward Charlotte. Good night, Mr. Joseph. Thank you for dinner, Charlotte said in a low voice. Humph. Joseph only snorted coldly. He didn't even have the interest to talk to Charlotte. Let's go, Anina said to Charlotte. Then, she lowered her voice. How about you push my head into the sink? I'm going to settle the score with you. Charlotte was slightly stunned. Anina laughed again. I was just joking with you. Thank you. I know what Joseph wants to do. Charlotte also laughed. Let's go. Let's not talk about the past anymore. However, just as the two walked side by side to the forest path, a few motorcycles suddenly rushed out from the road behind them. Charlotte looked back. Suddenly, he grabbed Anina's waist and pushed her to the ground. Chapter 127. Bang! Just as Charlotte pushed Anina to the ground, there was a gunshot. The bullet grazed Charlotte's shoulder and hit the grass. Grass and dirt flew everywhere. The person who fired the shot was the mafia leader who had been kicked in the face by Charlotte last night. The other four were also people who had been knocked out by Charlotte last night. Two of them still had gauze wrapped around their heads. Charlotte had hit them with a brick. Joseph, alarmed and frightened, turned and ran for his house. Bang! Bang! One of the bikers raised his gun and fired 3 shots at Joseph's back. Joseph fell to the ground. His white shirt was dyed red with blood in the blink of an eye. Sally didn't dare to waste any time. Just as Joseph was hit by the bullet, he carried Anina and rolled into the forest. It was only then that Anina came back to her senses. Her face was pale. Chase them, the mafia leader roared. Kill them. Xiaolei pulled Anina, who was scared silly, and ran into the depths of the forest. The 5 mafia members jumped out of the car and chased after Charlotte and Anina, firing as they ran. They'll kill us, Anina cried as she ran. We're dead this time. Charlotte held her hand tightly. Don't talk. They'll find us. Anina then shut her mouth. Her brain could no longer think normally. She allowed Xiaolei to pull her into the depths of the forest. It was dark in the woods. The moonlight couldn't penetrate the dense canopy. But this gave Charlotte a chance to escape. His left eye could see everything he wanted to see in the dark. As Charlotte ran, he looked back from time to time. He changed directions several times. Finally, he pulled Anina and ran in the direction of her house. The woods weren't big. The 5 mafia members wouldn't need much time to search the whole forest. So, hiding in the woods was definitely a stupid idea. Is your shotgun still usable? Charlotte asked when Anina's house came into view. Anina said nervously, Yes, I'll go get the gun. Xiaolei let go of her hand and turned around to take a look. In his line of sight, 5 gang members were chasing him from the forest. The few of them cooperated very well. They were separated by a distance of 10 meters and looked out for each other while searching the forest. It had been 7 to 8 minutes since Joseph had been shot down. The residents of Wharton Town would have called the police if they had heard the gunshots, but there was no police station in this town. It would take at least 30 minutes for the police cars from the city to arrive. That was why these gangsters could so arrogantly chase after him and Anina with guns. She quickly ran out with the shotgun and handed it to Charlotte. Charlotte took a look at the shotgun and then aimed it in the direction of the woods. Anina asked worriedly, Have you ever fired a gun? Charlotte shook his head. I've never driven one. Ah, Anina said in surprise. Then why do you want to snatch it? Let's escape by bike. Charlotte said, Those guys have motorcycles too. If we escape by bike, they can easily catch up to us. They have guns in their hands. Once they catch up to us, we're dead meat. But you don't know how to shoot. Although I've fired a gun before, I've never even killed a rabbit, let alone shot a human. What should we do? Anina was very anxious. Charlotte handed the shotgun to Anina. So, you do the shooting. Me? Anina's mouth was wide open. She couldn't believe that this was Charlotte's idea. Charlotte said, My vision and hearing are very good. Later, when I tell you to shoot, You shoot in that direction, okay? Anina shook her head and looked like she was about to cry. No, your idea is terrible. Charlotte put his hands on her shoulders. You've already guessed it was me after what happened last night, right? Anina nodded subconsciously. Charlotte said again. At that time, they also had guns in their hands, but I still took care of them. This time is no exception. Believe me, we'll be fine. Anina said, I believe you, but it's so dark in the woods. I can't see the target at all. My marksmanship is very bad. Even if I see the target, I might not be able to hit it accurately, let alone not being able to see the target. Charlotte said, I'll be your eyes. Let's go. They're coming. Anina finally nodded and followed Charlotte back into the woods. In fact, shooting a gun wasn't a difficult thing. Aim, pull the trigger, and the rest would be done by the bullets. If Charlotte were to shoot, it wouldn't be a problem, but he didn't want to do so. The reason was very simple. He was a laborer from China. If he shot and killed the Germans, even if it was self-defense, the police would investigate him carefully. He didn't want such a thing to happen. If Anina were to shoot, it wouldn't be a problem for her to kill the 5 gangsters in self-defense. It was dark in the woods, and visibility was only a few meters. But in Charlotte's left eye, he could clearly see how the woods looked during the day and how it looked at night. He could clearly see the ants on the ground. Returning to the woods, he quickly found the 5 gangsters who were searching in this direction. The 5 gangsters lined up in a row, separated by a distance of more than 10 meters. They were very close to Anina's house. Charlotte held Anina's hand and quietly went around to the side. He hid behind the trunk of a big tree, quietly waiting for the nearest gangster to walk past his hiding place. Anina was by his side, and she was so nervous that she was trembling. The nearest gangster quickly walked past the parallel line. Now, in the direction of your house. Charlotte whispered in Anina's ear. Anina subconsciously raised her gun and aimed in the direction of her house. But her vision was pitch black, and she couldn't see any target at all. At this time, Charlotte stuck close to her back, and a pair of hands reached under her waist. His left hand held her left hand, and his right hand held her right. This posture was as if he was aiming a gun himself. His hands were like a pair of clamps that clamped down on her armpits. That pair of plump breasts was naturally within the range of his clamps. Her breasts were clamped by him, and they protruded forward even more. The situation was like 2 loaded cannonballs that would fly out at any time. Anina suddenly became nervous, but this nervousness wasn't entirely because she was about to shoot someone, but because Charlotte was sticking close to her back. She could feel a strange lump on her, but it was on her butt, and it was full of volume and density. A feeling that made her blush became more and more obvious. Does he want to shoot above or shoot below? Inexplicably, such a thought flashed across Anina's mind. At this most inopportune moment, Anina's mind was filled with such thoughts. In fact, Charlotte was also feeling very awkward and nervous. Such a close position made him very sensitive, especially that part of him. He felt like a part of him wanted to rebel. He took a deep breath and tried to suppress the heat in his body. Then he slowly adjusted the direction of Anina's muzzle and whispered in her ear, "Fire." Anina pulled the trigger reflexively, and the muzzle suddenly spat out a ball of flame. The gangster who had walked less than 10 meters away from them screamed and fell to the ground. The shotgun's ammunition was shotgun, and the distance of a few meters was enough for his body to withstand 80% of the bullets. He was already a sieve. The gangster who was shot fell to the ground, and he didn't move at all. With a successful shot, Charlotte pulled Anina and ran in the direction of Joseph's house. "They are in that direction." The gangster leader roared, "Chase." For gangsters ran in the direction of the gangster who had been shot, and as they ran, they fired blindly. At this moment, Charlotte and Anina had already run somewhere else. "Did I hit him?" Anina asked nervously when they stopped. Charlotte whispered, "Yes, you hit him." "Ah." After screaming out, Anina covered her mouth. She was very excited, very nervous, and also very afraid. Charlotte comforted her. "Don't be afraid. We will be fine. As long as we hold on for a while longer, the police will come." Anina suddenly hugged Charlotte, her body trembling. Charlotte patted her back. using this method to comfort her and help her calm down. No one could remain calm after shooting someone for the first time. At this moment, Chun Xiaoyan also felt like killing someone. Although the one who had fired the gun was Anina, Chun Xiaoyan was equivalent to Anina's gun frame and scope. The gangster's death was at least 50% related to him. However, if he didn't control his emotions, then it would be very dangerous. Charlotte looked into the woods and suddenly said to Anina, 10 o'clock, aim. Anina left Charlotte's embrace. She picked up the shotgun and aimed in the 10 o'clock direction. She couldn't see any targets in that direction, but at this moment, she was already very confident in Charlotte's judgment. She held the gun motionlessly, quietly waiting for something. Sure enough, as soon as she was ready, Xiao Lei came up to her from behind. Just like before, his hands reached under her armpits to clamp her breasts and hold onto her hands at the same time. What made her even more nervous was the contact between their butts. She once again felt Charlotte's characteristics as a man, and this time, it was even harder and more obvious than before. There was a strange feeling coming from there, and she quietly became excited. Shoot! Charlotte's voice rang in Anina's ears. Anina pulled the trigger without hesitation. Bang! There was a gunshot, and a big hole appeared in the chest of a gangster. This time, he didn't even scream before he fell to the ground. Bang, bang, bang. A hail of bullets flew out of the darkness and hit the tree trunk that Charlotte and Anina were hiding in. Charlotte pulled Anina and ran to the side. He and Anina had already run away, but the remaining 3 gangsters were still shooting in a straight line. In a dark environment, Charlotte was actually a natural and terrifying hunter. Chapter 128. The familiar man had turned into a corpse, lying on the ground motionlessly. The big bloody hole on his chest was shocking. Looking at the second dead man, the head of the gang, Navis, was so angry that his eyes turned red. Why are you still standing there? Search for them. We must kill them. One of his men said, Boss, it's so dark in the woods. They are familiar with the environment. We are in a passive position. Another one of his men also became timid and said guiltily, Yes, boss, we already know where that woman works. We can wait for her on her way to work or on her way back from work. And that guy who is with her, he works in the same place as her. We can ambush them on the way. It's easy for us to kill them. In the dark corner, Anina's lips were tightly pursed, and her silver teeth were also tightly clenched. With the help of Charlotte, she had already shot and killed 2 people. That feeling was so bad that she didn't want to keep shooting and killing people. However, after eavesdropping on the conversation of the 3 gangsters, she couldn't wait to kill them. Not until then did Anina understand why Charlotte didn't take her to escape, but chose to fight with these gangsters. These gangsters had already found her home. If they could come here once, they could come here again. Only by killing them could they solve the problem thoroughly. Seeming to have felt Anina's anger and excitement, Charlotte reached out his hands to hold her shoulders and whispered in her ear, Don't be excited, calm down. Charlotte's voice was like a tranquilizer. Anina slightly nodded and gradually calmed down. On the other side, Navis slapped one of his men in the face and said angrily, Bastard, 2 of our men have died. If we don't kill them tonight, they will describe our appearance to the police. We have already killed an innocent man, and the police will not let us go. We must kill them tonight. Search for them. You which side? You this way. Navis pointed his gun in 2 directions and ordered 2 of his men to search, while he stayed where he was. The 2 of them had to search in 2 different directions. They walked very slowly, and they were all very nervous. One of the gang members was searching in the direction where Charlotte and Anina were. Charlotte whispered to Anina, Get ready. Anina picked up the gun and waited for Xiao Lei to come. Having experienced it twice, she was already used to the feeling of Charlotte sticking to her from behind. The smell of him, the hardness of him, and the warmth of his body were all factors that excited her. She didn't know why, but she liked this exciting and provocative feeling. Charlotte stuck to her from behind. His hands reached under her armpits and clamped her breasts. His lower abdomen was also pressed tightly against her waist. It wasn't that he wanted to take advantage of her, but that he had to consider the recoil of the shotgun while acting as Anina's scope and gun rack. The recoil of the shotgun was very strong. If he didn't hold Anina's body tightly, the shotgun's bullet might change direction when it was still in the barrel, which would be a fatal mistake. However, when Charlotte pressed against Anina's waist and buttocks, Anina twisted her buttocks for no reason. The sudden feeling of excitement made Charlotte nervous and short of breath. For him, Anina's movement was like she was teasing a hungry dog with a meat bun, and the dog's neck was only tied with a rubber band, which might break free and bite her bun at any time. He thought that Anina just moved because she felt uncomfortable, but she twisted again. This time, it seemed to be intentional and skillful, just like the famous Brazilian hip twisting dance. "What are you doing?" Charlotte asked nervously. He didn't dare to look at Anina, but fixed his eyes on the gang members who were getting closer and closer. Anina's voice was as weak as a mosquito's. "Your thing tickles me." Charlotte was speechless. This was probably the most intimate sentence the two had ever said since they met. The man and woman who were pressed against each other knew exactly what it was. However, this wasn't the time to think about other issues. The two of them were embarrassed for a moment, and then they both quieted down. Charlotte held Anina's hands firmly and aimed the muzzle at the gang members who were carefully approaching. He then whispered in Anina's ear, "Shoot." Bang! The shotgun let out an angry roar, and the fireworks from the gunpowder were particularly conspicuous in the dark woods. The gang members who were close by were shot at the same time as the gunshot rang out. The shotgun bullets hit his chest and neck, and his front was a mess. After he fell, he twitched twice and then became completely quiet. Anina put away the gun and wanted to run, but Charlotte held her and didn't let her move. "What are you doing?" "We'll be discovered," Anina said nervously. Charlotte whispered in her ear, "You'll know in a moment." Sure enough, almost at the same time that the gang member was shot and fell to the ground, bullets flew from both sides of the tree that the two of them were hiding in. A few bullets hit the tree trunk beside the two of them. The splinters from the bullets flew onto the two men's bodies and faces, causing them to feel a burning pain. Anina was so scared that her face turned pale. If it weren't for Charlotte holding her and not letting her move, she would have run out of her hiding place. The enemy's blind bullets would have had an 80% chance of hitting her, and she had almost brushed shoulders with the Grim Reaper. How did you know?" Anina said in a small voice, surprised. Charlotte said, "The first 2 times we fought and then ran, the enemy would figure out our pattern. If we did the same thing the 3rd time, we'd be dead." Just now, the leader asked his 2 men to search, and he stood still, waiting for the flames from the shotgun to shoot. "You're amazing," Anina said. Charlotte closed his mouth. In fact, he didn't predict the strategy of the gang leader Navis, but he saw that Navis stood still, waiting for him and Anina to shoot his men. Navis used his men as bait, which was a sinister plan. However, although Navis's strategy looked brilliant, it was so ridiculous in Charlotte's eyes. "There! Chase him!" Navis roared. The only man chased after them with a gun, but Navis still stood still. Charlotte whispered in Anina's ear, "Hold the gun." Anina obediently held the gun and stretched it out against the tree trunk, waiting for Charlotte to adjust the direction of the muzzle. Charlotte stuck close to Anina's body, aiming the gun at the gang member who was rushing over. Bang! 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 The gang member blindly shot while approaching them, and several bullets hit the trees beside them. Anina looked very nervous, but Charlotte was very calm. His eyes were locked on the gang member, waiting for the target to enter the shooting range. The shotgun was powerful, but its shooting range was very short, which was a disadvantage. If Anina had a rifle or a sniper rifle in her house, he wouldn't have to spend so much effort, and he could have ordered Anina to kill the 5 gangsters. Anina was very obedient this time, and didn't twist her hips, but Charlotte still felt it strongly. For times, a part of his body stood up, squatted down, and stood up again. He had a hungry dog, and Anina had a meat bun. She always used that meat bun to tempt his dog. How could his dog not be tempted? This feeling was really uncomfortable. Fortunately, it was about to end. Shoot, Charlotte whispered in Anina's ear. Bang! The shotgun roared again, and a fire snake spurted out from the barrel. The gang member who had just run to his partner's body fell to the ground. Like his partner, he twitched twice and then stopped moving. This time, Anina learned not to run out of the hiding place rashly. Bullets flew over again, and this time, Navis emptied a whole clip. The random bullets made Anina very nervous, and Charlotte held her tightly to help her calm down. After emptying a clip, Navis ran to the direction of the parked motorcycle. He wasn't sure whether he had hit Charlotte and Anina, but he certainly didn't have the guts to come over and have a look. He had brought 4 men with him, and now they were all dead. His courage had long been broken. Chase! Charlotte pulled Anina and ran. Chase? Did he run away? Anina couldn't see who was running in the dark. Charlotte didn't speak, but just ran in the woods with her. Are we going to kill a man who is running away? Anina asked uneasily. Charlotte said, You make the decision yourself. You've heard their conversation. He knows where we work, and he also knows where your home is. Do you want him to run away and call his men to kill you again? I'm here tonight. What will you do if he comes to your home with his men tomorrow night? Anina bit her lip. Help me, I'm going to shoot him. Follow me. Charlotte took Anina to catch up. The terrain of the forest was complicated in the dark, and there were stones, weeds, and vines everywhere. Ordinary people had to struggle to see the situation on the ground clearly. In such an environment, Navis couldn't run fast at all. He had been very careful, but when he approached the edge of the woods, he was still tripped by a vine and fell to the ground. Damn it! Bad luck. Navis got up from the ground and continued to run forward. At this moment, a gunshot came from behind. Navis's body flew forward for a few steps before falling to the ground. When his body fell to the ground, he wanted to get up instinctively, but he suddenly found that he couldn't control his arms at all. After 2 or 3 seconds, he stopped breathing. His eyes were wide open, and he died with everlasting regret. Did I hit him? Anina asked nervously. Charlotte said, Yes, we are safe now. Anina suddenly threw away the shotgun in her hand, turned around, hugged Charlotte, and kissed Charlotte's lips. Charlotte was stunned for a moment. This was his first kiss, and he had never thought that he would lose his first kiss in such an environment, especially after killing 5 people. Anina didn't give Charlotte any chance to think. Her lilac tongue opened Charlotte's teeth deftly and slipped into his mouth like a sly fish. Then a fish met another fish. The 2 fishes were entangled in the limited space, tearing each other, splashing water, and making chaotic sounds. Chapter 129. The passionate kiss was over, but the most important part was under someone else's control. Suddenly, Xiaolei wanted to ignore everything else. He wanted to push her onto the grass in the forest and have a taste of a woman. He wanted to take off the virginity hat on his head. Anina seemed to be tempting him. She bit Charlotte's ear and said, Take me. Her voice was full of temptation, but it made Charlotte sober up. He grabbed her hand that was trying to untie his belt. Anina, we should go and see Joseph. Anina was stunned for a moment, and then let go of Charlotte. The continuous intimate contact, plus the weird excitement of shooting and killing, had kept her in a state of excitement. She wanted Charlotte very badly. However, Charlotte's words were like a bucket of cold water poured on her head. Yes, Joseph was her friend who grew up with her. He was shot by a gangster, and she didn't know whether he was dead or alive. How could she have fun with Charlotte at this time? Sorry, Anina said awkwardly. I lost control of myself. Let's go and see Joseph. She picked up the shotgun that she had thrown on the ground and then walked towards Joseph's house. They passed by Navis's body, which was lying on the ground like a dead dog. Anina kicked Navis's thigh angrily and then said, Joseph kicked you. Then she kicked him again. This one is mine. Charlotte patted her shoulder. Let's go, he's dead. Anina nodded and then followed Charlotte out of the woods. Joseph's house was lit, and under the light, a group of people could be seen standing in front of Joseph's house. Several men were holding shotguns in their hands. These people were residents of the small town. They had heard the gunshots and had come to help. However, they didn't dare to enter the dark woods to fight with the gangsters. Hands up! Don't move! An old man saw Nina and Charlotte and then raised his gun to aim. A few of the townsfolk also picked up their hunting rifles, and the scene suddenly became tense. Anina said loudly, "It's me, Anina. The criminal is dead." "It's Anina's voice," said someone. She said the criminal is dead? What's going on? Some people didn't believe it. The residents of the town were in a heated discussion. Charlotte and Anina walked over and saw Joseph. He was lying on the ground with 2 bullet holes in his back, one in his lung and the other in his waist. The wound was still bleeding, soaking the ground beneath him. However, he was still breathing. He was not dead. On the grass beside Joseph was some cotton cloth, stained with blood. It seemed like someone had treated his wound just now, but the treatment method was very amateurish. "Joseph, are you all right?" Anina asked with concern. Joseph did not respond. His eyes were closed, and his breathing was labored. Just then, a woman came out of the house with a first aid kit in her hand. "Which one of you knows first aid?" the woman asked. Everyone shook their heads. The woman frowned and said, "I've already called the police and explained the situation. Why aren't the police and ambulance here yet?" An old man holding a hunting rifle said, "They won't be that fast. My wife broke her leg in the bathroom last time. I called the ambulance, and they only arrived half an hour later. Luckily, my wife only suffered fracture. If it were Joseph's wound, she would have died long ago." "What should we do?" the woman said anxiously. "Joseph's wound is still bleeding. He won't be able to last until the ambulance arrives." Everyone was very anxious, but this kind of thing required professional knowledge and skills. There was no point in being anxious. Just then, Charlotte said, "Let me try." The woman looked at Charlotte in surprise. "You? Who are you? Are you a doctor?" Anina said, "Andy Rona. His name is Charlotte. He's my friend. He's very capable. Let him try." "Is he a doctor?" the woman called Rona asked. "He is." Anina was stumped. She actually did not know if Charlotte had first aid skills. Charlotte said, "I'm not a doctor. I'm a mechanic." "Huh? Mechanic?" Rona's expression was very exaggerated. "Joseph isn't a machine. He needs a doctor, not a mechanic." Someone said, "That's right. How can a mechanic do the work of a doctor? Moreover, he's a yellow-skinned kid. He doesn't look like a doctor. What if he kills Joseph? Who's going to bear the responsibility? Him?" Someone asked doubtfully. Everyone started discussing. Other than Anina, almost no one was willing to believe Charlotte. Charlotte said, "Joseph's wound is still bleeding. How long do you guys need to discuss? I'm afraid Joseph will die from excessive blood loss before you guys can come to a conclusion. If I try, he might still have a chance. If I don't try, he won't even have a chance. You guys can decide for yourselves." Actually, it wasn't just the townspeople who felt that the risk was too high. Even Charlotte himself knew that it was very risky. The reason was very simple. He had never treated anyone before and had never seriously studied any medical skills. The reason why he decided to do this was not because he wanted to be a hero, but because Joseph was very important. According to the information he had, Joseph hadn't completed the research and production of the Advanced Intelligent Machine tool. He was only nearing the end. If Joseph died at this time, who would complete the Advanced AI Machine tool? Leona glanced at the dying Joseph and finally made a decision. She passed the first aid kit to Xiaolei. "You can give it a try, but please be careful. If you don't have the ability to deal with the problem, just wait for the ambulance. We will pray for Joseph." Charlotte nodded and went to Joseph's side. He opened the first aid kit and took out a pair of scissors. He carefully cut open Joseph's blood-stained shirt. The 2 wounds on Joseph's back were exposed. Both wounds were bleeding, and it was impossible to see the inside of the wounds. Joseph's injuries were very serious. Xiaolei's brows furrowed slightly. With such serious injuries, even if the ambulance arrived, they could only put Joseph on oxygen and transfer him to the hospital for examination and treatment. To wait for treatment, Joseph had to survive the time it would take for the ambulance to send him to the hospital. In terms of time and injuries, Charlotte was almost certain that Joseph would die on the way to the hospital, or even before that. "He really doesn't have the ability in this area," an old man said. "I guess he doesn't even know what he should do. Joseph will die in his hands. Tell him to stop." "I don't believe him," someone said. Anina wasn't happy. "Can you guys keep quiet? Even if Joseph is in the hospital, will the doctor allow you guys to be so noisy?" A few people who were whispering to each other awkwardly shut their mouths. Actually, if Charlotte was a German, they might not be so suspicious. Even if they were suspicious, they would be much more polite. Although it wasn't racial discrimination, it was still a bit of regional discrimination. Leonis said, "Let's pray for Joseph. The Lord will bless him." The group of people started to pray, and Charlotte also got some peace. Just as everyone was praying for Joseph, his left eye twitched slightly, and like a scalpel, it cut into a wound on Joseph's lung. He saw the blood, and he let it disappear. Then he saw the torn muscles, broken blood vessels, and a hole in the lung. The bullet was embedded in his lung. Charlotte then used his X-ray vision to look at the wound on Joseph's waist. Joseph was very lucky. The bullet stopped at the edge of his kidney. If it had been 1 centimeter further, it would have hit his kidney. If it hadn't been for the kidney, he would have died. Joseph's fatal wound is in his lung. If I can find a way to remove the bullet and then ligate the broken blood vessels, he should feel better and be able to go to the hospital for treatment, Charlotte thought to himself. His gaze fell on the first aid kit. There was gauze, disinfectant, hemostatic powder, forceps, amoxicillin, and other commonly used drugs in the first aid kit. There was no scalpel or anesthetic. There were no conditions for surgery at all. Under normal circumstances, the doctor would need to take a picture of Joseph and confirm the location of the bullet before they dared to operate. But Charlotte could see the condition of Joseph's body with his eyes, and it was even clearer and more accurate than using an instrument. So, he only lacked the tools and drugs for the surgery. After thinking for a while, a bold plan formed in Charlotte's mind. He picked up the pair of medical forceps and carefully inserted them into Joseph's wound. The forceps entered Joseph's wound bit by bit, and Charlotte's left eye was locked on the wound. He didn't dare to relax at all. This seemed like a reckless move, but it was actually the safest and most minimally invasive method, because he could see the situation inside the wound with the forceps. With the X-ray vision of his left eye, he could also avoid causing a second injury to Joseph. He actually used forceps. An old man saw Charlotte's action and was so shocked that he couldn't close his mouth. "Quick, make him stop. What kind of joke is he playing?" He actually inserted the forceps into Joseph's body. Someone said angrily. Anina was also scared silly. But at this moment, Charlotte lifted the hand holding the forceps, and a slightly deformed bullet was pulled out from Joseph's wound. Charlotte threw the bullet away and then inserted the forceps into Joseph's wound. This time, he didn't insert too much of the forceps. He only used the forceps to clamp the blood vessel that was cut short by the bullet. After the forceps clamped the broken blood vessel, the wound immediately stopped bleeding. Everyone stared at Charlotte, dumbfounded. It was so quiet that not a single sound could be heard. Charlotte said, "His wound has stopped bleeding, and he should be able to hold on until the ambulance arrives. The other wound isn't fatal, so let's wait for the doctor to treat it." Anina looked at Charlotte in a daze, but there was nothing in her mind. No one made any irresponsible remarks about Charlotte anymore. Their eyes were filled with respect. The sound of the ambulance came from afar, and it was getting closer and closer. Charlotte quietly breathed a sigh of relief. He thought to himself, "I must learn medical skills after returning to China. I work for Innings 101, and I will definitely encounter similar situations in the future. It's good to have another skill." Chapter 130. The police and a doctor arrived together. The residents of the small town explained the situation to the police and the doctor. One of the emergency doctors looked at the forceps stuck in Joseph's back in shock. He also looked at Charlotte, who was squatting beside Joseph and using his hands to stabilize the forceps. "What are you doing?" The bullet hit his lungs, Charlotte explained. He's in critical condition. I removed the bullet for him and used the forceps to clamp down on his blood vessels to stop the bleeding. Huh? The emergency doctor was tongue-tied. Who told you to do that? A nurse in the ambulance scolded. Don't you know how dangerous it is? Charlotte didn't say anything. Joseph's condition was stable, and that was enough for him. He did not expect the medics to be grateful to him for doing them a great service. The medical staff put an oxygen bag on Joseph. Although the nurse who scolded Charlotte sounded tough, she still carefully took the forceps from Charlotte's hands and imitated Charlotte's movements to stabilize the forceps. In fact, the medical staff knew that although Charlotte's actions were reckless, he had saved Joseph. After handing Joseph over to the medical staff, Charlotte walked toward Anina. Anina was being questioned by the police. He didn't get close, but stood to the side and listened. You said you killed 5 criminals? The police officer who took the statement couldn't believe it was true. His eyes were filled with surprise. Anina said, Yes, I used my father's gun to kill them. Their bodies are in the forest. You did it alone? The police officer asked. Anina glanced at Charlotte. Xiaolei was a little nervous. He didn't know what Anina would say. Anina was silent for a moment before saying, Yes, I did it alone. Those people are members of a gang. They attacked me at the bar and chased me here today. They shot and injured my friend Joseph. They also wanted to kill me. I was defending myself. The police officer and Anina exchanged questions and answers. Charlotte secretly sighed in relief. He didn't shoot himself. Instead, he helped Anina shoot those gangsters. His purpose was to avoid trouble. Anina seemed to be aware of this. She knew that she couldn't complete this task alone, but she still took it on. Joseph was quickly sent away by the ambulance. The police also found the corpses of the 5 gangsters in the forest. After that, the police put the corpses in body bags and moved them to a temporarily requisitioned pickup truck. Miss Anina, you have to come back to the police station with us to assist in the investigation. A policeman said to Anina, But don't worry, this is just routine work. You killed someone in self-defense. There will be no charges against you. Can you give me a few minutes? Anina said, I want to talk to my friend. The policeman nodded. Go ahead, but please hurry. Anina walked to Charlotte's side and pulled Charlotte to an empty corner. After making sure that no one was eavesdropping, she said, Lucas, go to my house and wait for me to come back. I won't take too long. Charlotte said, Okay, I'll go to your house after you leave. Anina said, You can sleep in the room on the 2nd floor. You can also use the bathroom on the 2nd floor. Well, you can do whatever you want. Don't stand on ceremony. Charlotte nodded. He wasn't thinking about which room to sleep in or which bathroom to shower in. He was thinking about how to sneak into Joseph's warehouse and steal the secret of the smart machine tool after the police and the townspeople left. But at this moment, Anina suddenly hugged Charlotte and bit his earlobe. Wait for me to come back. With a warm and fragrant body in his arms, her softness and her sexuality within reach, Charlotte's heart was stirred up by her again. His body stiffened slightly. She said that, but he didn't know how to respond. Anina kissed Charlotte's cheek and smiled at Charlotte. She turned around and walked to the policeman who was waiting for her. Xiaolei watched as Anina got into the car and the police car left. A wry smile appeared on his lips. Western women are really open-minded. Should I tell her that I have a wife? Will she be angry if I tell her? It was really hard to guess what a woman was thinking. The townspeople left one after another. Lucas, do you want to go to my house for a drink? Rona, who was the last to leave, asked Charlotte. Charlotte said politely, Thank you, Auntie Rona, but it's late. Maybe another day. Okay, good night, Mr. Lucas. Rona said good night and left. Charlotte slowly walked back to the path he came from. After walking on the path for a while, he left the path and took a detour to Joseph's warehouse. There was no one in Joseph's house at this time, so it was a good time to act. At the edge of the forest, Charlotte surveyed the surroundings of Joseph's house. He used his X-ray vision to make sure there was no one around. Then he quickly passed through the grass and went straight to the warehouse. There was a big iron door in the warehouse, and there was a huge lock on the iron door. The lock was a roadblock. If he picked it, Joseph would come back to find that someone had picked his lock. But if he didn't pick the lock, the metal roof of the warehouse would be airtight. There wasn't even a ventilation duct. Other than the iron door, there was no other way in. Right? When I was treating Joseph, I didn't see him with a key. It's unlikely that he would bring a warehouse key to his birthday party. He must have left the key at his house. I'll find his key and use it to open the door. Then, I'll put it back where it was. He won't find anything. Charlotte quickly came up with an idea. Charlotte entered Joseph's house from the back door and used his X-ray vision again. A few minutes later, he found the key he needed in a drawer in Joseph's study. With the ability to see through things, it was very easy for him to find something that was hidden. Using the key to open the warehouse's iron door, Charlotte walked in. The warehouse was dark, but he didn't need to turn on the lights. At night, the light would be transmitted far away, and it would be easy to be discovered. He wouldn't make such a low-level mistake. Charlotte walked in front of the machine that was covered with a fluorescent tarpaulin. He opened the tarpaulin. What he saw was indeed a large machine tool. It looked incomplete, but there wasn't much left. After walking around the machine tool twice, Charlotte could see the internal structure of the machine tool. He couldn't help but exclaim, although Joseph wasn't a good person, he was definitely a genius in the field of electrical engineering. Once such an intelligent machine tool is produced, it will be the most advanced, even in Germany. If I bring its blueprints and technology back to China, my Lima manufacturing company will forever be the most advanced machine tool in the world. It seemed that risking his life to save Joseph was the right decision. If Joseph died, then no one would be able to complete the research and manufacturing of this machine tool. After roughly looking through the incomplete intelligent machine tool, Charlotte used his X-ray vision to observe the internal structure of the machine tool from different angles. Every part, every circuit board, even the model and position of the capacitors and resistors on the circuit board, he photographed them with his left eye. This was a huge amount of information. Overusing his X-ray vision also consumed a lot of his energy. After half an hour, he finished looking through the intelligent machine tool and fell to the ground in exhaustion. The illusion that hadn't appeared for a long time also appeared. Charlotte saw Nina. She suddenly appeared in the warehouse, wearing a sexy bikini. She walked towards him. He didn't know what kind of perfume she used, but she smelled good. She walked to his side, squatted down, and used her hands to touch his cheeks, chest, stomach. Charlotte knew that this was an illusion, but it felt too real. He couldn't help but stare at her slightly parted thighs, looking at the mature and mysterious shape outlined by the bikini. Then, a wave of heat appeared in his body. The hallucinations caused by excessive use of the X-ray vision were actually the same as dreams. He had been with Anina for the whole day, hugged and kissed her, so it was normal for him to have such hallucinations at this time. "Lucas, you're so strong," Anina said and then pressed on top of him. Charlotte closed his eyes. The illusion was so real that he couldn't do anything about it. Luckily, the illusion disappeared after a few minutes. After recovering some energy, Charlotte climbed up from the ground. He looked around the environment in the warehouse. He saw some parts that hadn't been processed, computers, and some circuit boards. Finally, he saw a safe embedded in the wall. Charlotte walked over. The safe was made in Germany. Although it wasn't the most high-end brand, it wasn't bad either. It required a digital password and a turntable password to open it. It was difficult for a burglar like Qin Xiang to open a safe like this, but it wasn't a problem for him. After a short rest, Charlotte used his own method to open the safe. There was a thick stack of blueprints in the safe. Charlotte took out the blueprints and looked at them carefully. Without a doubt, these were the blueprints of the smart machine that Joseph had personally drawn. Charlotte looked through them one by one, and it took him half an hour to look through them. After looking through all the blueprints, he took out his phone and took pictures of each one. When he was looking at the blueprints, he had actually memorized all the contents. The reason why he took pictures was because he wanted to give these blueprints to Long Bing. Long Bing also had a part in this mission, and she needed something practical to report to the higher-ups. Although the blueprints that Joseph had left in the safe were missing the last part, it was still very important and valuable to the relevant departments. If Long Bing could use these pictures to report to the higher-ups, it would be enough. After taking the pictures, Charlotte put the blueprints back into the safe, untouched, and then he closed the safe. A few minutes later, he covered the incomplete smart machine with a fluorescent tarp and left the warehouse. Before putting the key back, Charlotte used a piece of soap to make a copy of the key, and then he took the soap with him. In the future, he would have to enter Joseph's warehouse, so it was necessary to make a copy of the key. On the way back to Anina's house, Charlotte was relaxed and in a good mood. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.